Chapter 719. Xiao Chen understood something. He raised his head and looked at the boiling lava. He said, "That is to say, if I just use my vital qi, the effect will be much better." Ao Jiao nodded and said, "Yes, that is how it is. However, you need to be careful. If you fall into the lava, no matter how strong you are, you will not be able to save yourself. You also need to be careful not to get sprayed by the dragon flame." The group of loose cultivators behind Xiao Chen communicated with each other with their gazes. They sized up Xiao Chen with malicious intent. Clearly, they had not given up on using him as a stepping stone. Xiao. Just as the loose cultivators were hesitating on whether they should charge forward and capture Xiao Chen, a loud whistling sound rang out. A whistling sound rang out. Xiao Chen rode on the azure dragon image and charged into the air above the lava. The loose cultivators all cried out in surprise. They all had strange expressions on their faces. "This fellow is too bold." After advancing 500 meters, the fire flame snakes wandering in the lava felt the aura of a living person. They quickly moved and shot out, kicking up large amounts of boiling lava. Pooh! 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 In an instant, 10 odd fire flame snakes launched themselves at Xiao Chen from all directions. Flames flickered in their hole-like eyes before they shot out streams of bright red lava. The lava was so hot that it made the air crackle as steam spread out. Xiao Chen stood on the blue dragon image and calmly took out 2 shields. Then, he placed one on the left and one on the right, wrapping himself up tightly. These were peak medial-grade defensive secret treasures. The lava did not burn through them immediately. However, they were incredibly hot. Xiao Chen felt some pain in his hands as he held them. After a while, Xiao Chen, who was hiding behind the shields, felt that the impact from the shields was gone. Xiao Chen waved his hands and his vital qi surged. Then, he tossed out the 2 shields. Bang! Carrying a huge force, the 2 shields spun and flew forward, each knocking down a fire flame snake and causing it to fall to the ground. The remaining fire flame snakes coiled around Xiao Chen, trying to pull him into the lava. Xiao Chen's face sank and he clenched his right fist tightly. His vital qi surged in his body like a surging river. His qi and blood surged to the peak. Facing an incoming fire flame snake, Xiao Chen circulated his vital qi and executed the 3rd move of the dragon claw fist, breaking armor. A cone-shaped vital qi formed in front of his fist. Then, Xiao Chen punched out 10 times at the 10 fire flame snake flying at him. Bang! The wind generated by the punch was like thunder, the sound reverberating in all directions. The loud sound caused the entire space to tremble. Rocks in the cavern above continued to fall, falling into the lava and being burned to ashes in the blink of an eye. The fire flame snake's body was made up of round fire flame rocks. Xiao Chen's 10 punches landed on a fire flame rock each time. A huge force exploded, and the fire flame stones, which were so hard that they could survive in the lava, were destroyed by Xiao Chen with a single punch. The 10 fire flame snakes tumbled in the air, and their bodies directly scattered into fire flame stones, falling into the lava. There were still 2 fire flame snakes left. Xiao Chen retracted his fist and stood upright. He stomped on the blue dragon's phantom and kicked out twice, bursting the heads of the 2 fire flame snakes. Taking advantage of the rebound, Xiao Chen recalled the shield that was still spinning in the air and shot forward like an arrow. What a terrifying power! Fortunately, we didn't attack him, otherwise we would all die here. I wonder where this ruthless person came from. He has a horrifying physical body and is a peak medial-grade martial monarch. Even a peak late-stage superior-grade martial monarch would not be able to deal with him easily. Let me take a look at this white-robed cultivator. He is far more than that. Aside from a half-sage, no one can do anything to him. When the loose cultivators on the shore saw this scene, they exchanged glances with each other, feeling a lingering fear. Unexpectedly, the fire flame snakes that gave half-sages a headache actually died so easily at Xiao Chen's hands. Relying on the two shields and the horrifying 1,000 tons of force, Xiaoqin swept through the place, shattering all the fire flame snakes that pounced at him. Soon, Xiaoqian's figure vanished into the darkness. Once he dodged the attack of the dragon flame, he would be able to pass this stage. The rocks above him contained light-absorbing stones, which absorbed all the light from the lava. This resulted in darkness, preventing people from seeing the surging lava below. Medial-grade secret treasures were useless against the dragon flame. Xiaoqin put away the two shields and carefully flew forward while standing on the blue dragon's phantom. Even though the lava had diluted it by 100 times, it was still a true dragon flame. Before this dragon flame, Xiaoqian's rank 1 sage body was no different from an ordinary body. He would die upon contact. Xiaoqin could not see anything in the darkness. The unforeseeable danger made him feel uneasy. Xiaoqin held his breath and focused. He did not panic or get flustered as he quickly flew forward. A golden light appeared, disappearing in a flash. The light was piercing. Xiaoqin could not help but close his eyes, leaving only a slit in them. However, he did not move blindly, as this dragon flame did not come from below. Boom! 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 The further Xiaoqin went, the more frequent the dragon flame erupted. Furthermore, there was no pattern to it. The cave flickered with light, making it hard to remain calm. If Xiaoqin panicked at this moment and dodged randomly, there was a high chance he would end up crashing into the dragon flame. Xiaoqin focused and guarded his qi, his heart calm. Along the way, the cultivation of his mental state was already much higher than that of his peers, and he would never be in a state of panic. Suddenly, Xiaoqin thought of something. He gently pushed off the blue dragon's phantom and spun around, moving forward. Pu Ci. The golden dragon flame instantly pierced through the head of the blue dragon's phantom, which was where Xiaoqin stood earlier. ZZ. Z. Z. The azure dragon image formed by veritable essence energy burned into nothing in that instant. Whoosh! As Xiaoqin stood in the air, another stream of dragon flame spewed out from below. It brushed past his nose and brushed past his shoulder. Xiaoqin could clearly feel the scorching heat. If he had used a little more force when he dodged earlier, the dragon flame would have burned him to ashes. That was close. After brushing past death, Xiaoqin calmed himself down. Then, he moved even more carefully. After 1 hour, Xiaoqin finally made it through the dark region and landed on the shore. When Xiaoqin turned his head back to look at the pitch-black danger zone, he felt a lingering fear. Strength, mental state, and luck were all necessary to make it through this place. No wonder Xiaoqin could block the 7 giants group of proud talents for so long. After passing this place, Xiaoqin looked ahead. His field of vision brightened, and a vast expanse appeared. Dense immortal qi surged over, immortal qi even purer than spiritual energy. At the limits of Xiaoqian's vision, he could see the figures of several cultivators moving about, searching for spirit herbs and precious ores that grew in the true dragon cave. After walking for 1 kilometer, Xiaoqin saw the corpses of a few cultivators. Beside the corpses was a bare scarlet tree trunk. The spirit fruits on the tree trunk had already been picked clean. Only this tree trunk was left, devoid of any signs of life, looking like it had withered. Hey, it looks like a spirit tree that can bear blood flame fruits. It is not dead yet. Xiaoqin, bring it in. Your immortal spirit ring can support it. Ao Jiao, who was taking care of the lunar cassia tree in the ring's world, spoke up. Xiaoqin smiled and said, it will probably take another few hundred years for it to mature. Even though Xiaoqin said that, he still followed Ao Jiao's instructions. This place was not dangerous. Digging out the blood flame tree would not take much time, so there was nothing to complain about. Ao Jiao giggled and said, let's see if we can find a few more spirit tree trunks later. Not everyone has a peak-grade immortal spirit ring. If we are lucky, we can collect some spirit trees here and turn them into a simple herb garden. It will probably take a few hundred years for it to take shape, Xiaochen thought to himself. The true dragon cave was indeed a land of treasures. As Xiaochen continued forward, he found several more spirit trees that could not be seen in the outside world. However, all the spirit fruits on them had already been picked clean, leaving only bare tree trunks. No one cared about them. So, Xiaochen collected them all and moved them into the immortal spirit ring. The number of cultivators that Xiaochen saw increased, gradually catching up with the main group. Glancing around, Xiaochen discovered a familiar person far in front. It was Shimen Bao of the Shimen clan, one of the Tianwu domain's 4 great clans. Shimen Bao's appearance had not changed much. However, his arrogance was much more restrained than before. This was because none of the people around him were weak. Aside from Shimen Bao, Xiaochen also saw the top genius of the battle realms, Niu Dang, and a peak late-stage superior-grade martial monarch, a black-clad loose cultivator. The 3 stood in a triangle, separated by 500 meters. A glistening, scarlet spirit fruit stood in the middle of the 3. It exuded overwhelming spiritual energy and looked very tempting. There were several cultivators around the 3. Their eyes flickered as they stared at the scarlet spirit fruit greedily. However, there were already 3 experts eyeing this spirit fruit. The others could only watch. They would not dare to snatch it even if they had the courage. The dragon mark fruit contains dragon energy. It can increase a cultivator's strength by 150 tons of force. Among the treasures in this true dragon cave, it would definitely rank within the top 20. So what if it is valuable? Shimen Bao, Niu Dang, and Dan Tianyu, who is ranked in the top 70 of the evil cultivator ranking, have their eyes on it. We have no chance at all. The surrounding people discussed in soft voices as they stared at the dragon mark fruit. Their words were filled with regret. I wonder which of the 3 will obtain the dragon mark fruit. I feel that Shimen Bao has the highest chance. He is from a noble clan and has a high cultivation. His strength is second only to the 7 giants. It is hard to say. Niu Dang deserves his reputation as the top genius of the battle realms. Before he came, he was evenly matched with Feng Xingsheng. Dan Tianyu is the oldest and has the deepest cultivation. Furthermore, he cultivates a baleful aura. He should not be weaker than these 2. It is hard to say who will emerge victorious. Everyone was very interested in who would obtain the dragon mark fruit in the end. They could foresee that it wouldn't take long. They could foresee that soon, the 3 would start a huge battle for the dragon mark fruit, fighting to the death. Shimen Bao glanced at Niu Dang, then at Dan Tianyu. He said, I advise you not to fight with me. If you offend me and provoke my great-grandfather, none of you will have a good ending. When the tall Niu Dang heard this, he smiled coldly and said, Shimen Bao, who are you trying to scare? Not to mention whether your great-grandfather will make a move over such a trivial matter. Even if he does, do you think the seniors of our battle realms in the Bushin Palace are just decorations? Chapter 720. The 10 great battle realms had been famous for a long time. Naturally, Emperor Wu held an important position in the Bushin Palace. Hence, he did not fear Shimen Bao. Furthermore, the Shimen clan's Emperor Wu would not teach them a lesson over such a trivial matter. Everyone could imagine how precious Emperor Wu's time was. Dan Tianyu smiled sinisterly and said, this old man is just a loose cultivator. At worst, I will just leave the Tianwu domain. Brat, you are too inexperienced to use this to threaten me. Shimen Bao's gaze turned sinister as rage burned in his eyes. This dragon mark fruit held a great attraction to cultivators who did not cultivate the physical body. Just think about it. If one could obtain 150 tons of force without enduring the pain of tempering the physical body, it would be equivalent to raising one's overall strength by 10%. Shimen Bao said sullenly, give this dragon mark fruit to me. If you want to fight for any other spirit fruits, I, Shimen Bao, will do my best to help you. Niu Dang laughed loudly, and a ferocious light flashed in his eyes. He said coldly, Shimen Bao, who does not know what kind of person you are? How much is your reputation worth? This old man will tell you the truth. We Battle Realm cultivators are born with divine strength. With the help of the dragon mark fruit, we are like tigers that have grown wings. This dragon mark fruit belongs to me. No one can snatch it away from me. Dan Tianyu laughed softly and said, "How unfortunate. This old man has a friend who cultivates the physical body. This dragon mark fruit can be used to exchange for a treasure that I have long been interested in. This old man will not give this dragon mark fruit to anyone else." The three's auras surged, not giving way to each other. A huge battle could break out at any moment. Xiao Chen, who was standing on a rock in the distance, saw all this. He smiled gently and said, "Dragon mark fruit." Unexpectedly, after entering the depths of the true dragon cave, I immediately ran into such a good thing. Roar! A dragon roar came from Xiao Chen's chest. He stood on a blue dragon image and executed the blue dragon tail whip. Xiao Chen moved in a huge arc and moved like a gust of wind, flashing above everyone's heads. In an instant, he arrived above the dragon mark fruit. Before the three could react, Xiao Chen had already moved. With a suction force, the dragon mark fruit flew into his right hand. When the blue dragon swung its tail, it was like a gust of wind blowing past. It was incredibly fast. Shimen Bao and the other two were currently focused on their opponents. However, their attention on the dragon mark fruit had decreased significantly, giving Xiao Chen an opportunity. They had not expected someone to be so bold as to snatch the dragon mark fruit right in front of the three of them. By the time Xiao Chen reacted, the dragon mark fruit was already in Xiao Chen's hands. He had placed it in his universe ring. Seeing the dragon mark fruit snatched away, Shimen Bao immediately became enraged. He roared, "Where did this dog come from? How dare he snatch my, Shimen Bao's, things?" Clang! The sword was unsheathed, and the surging sword qi, along with the faint sword intent, emitted a buzzing sound as it shot towards Xiao Chen. The sword qi was like a pillar, like a rainbow that tore through the sun, and it swept out in all directions with unstoppable might. Niu Dang's expression sank, and he immediately leaped up. He clenched his fist and activated the ancient giant's bloodline. Then, he roared ferociously with a vast might. A sinister look flashed in Dan Tianyu's eyes. He drew a short sword and turned around, silently arriving behind Xiao Chen. The short sword gave off a cold light. Unexpectedly, Dan Tianyu wanted to cut off Xiao Chen's arm, which was wearing the universe ring. It was extremely vicious. When the cultivators below, who were originally anticipating the fight between the three experts, saw this scene, they were all dumbfounded. They had not expected such a scene to occur. Unexpectedly, someone was so bold as to snatch away the dragon mark fruit, offending all three experts in an instant. The three attacked at different times. Xiao Chen did not panic. He circulated the 1,000 tons of force of vital qi in his body and executed the Dragon Claw Fist's third move, breaking armor. A sharp shockwave formed in front of Xiao Chen's fist. When Xiao Chen punched, the breaking armor attribute of breaking armor shattered the thick and dense sword qi. After shattering the sword qi, Niu Dang and Dan Tianyu took advantage of this opportunity to charge towards Xiao Chen. One of them carried the vast might of an ancient giant. His fist was like a mountain descending, wanting to smash Xiao Chen into a pile of meat paste. The other person was sinister and vicious. He radiated a baleful aura as he brandished his short sword, wanting to chop off Xiao Chen's arm and flee. When the two arrived before Xiao Chen, their faces lit up with joy. At such a close distance, this white-robed brat of unknown origins would not be able to deal with the two of them at the same time. Xiao Chen smiled faintly, and the strong ancient sovereign's bloodline in his body instantly activated. An ancient, noble, distant, and epic sovereign's aura spread out from Xiao Chen's body. Before this mountain-like sovereign's aura, the ancient giant's bloodline and the baleful aura accumulated by loose cultivators were like fallen leaves in autumn, swept away. Niu Dang and Dan Tianyu showed startled expressions at the same time. The sovereign's aura at such a close distance struck them. They could not help feeling flustered, a fear that came from the depths of their hearts. Oh no! The two of them were experts who had experienced hundreds of battles. They immediately realized that something was wrong. They struggled free from the sovereign's aura and tried to retreat. Xiao Chen's expression turned grave and stern. How could he give the two an opportunity to retreat so easily? Xiao Chen stomped heavily on the blue dragon image. His body was like a ferocious tiger as he infused 1,000 tons of force into his right leg. Bang! 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 Xiao Chen's leg moved like lightning. The instant his body soared into the air, he swept out. A strong wind blew, and his momentum was like thunder. Two muffled sounds rang out as Niu Dang and Dan Tianyu each received a kick to their cheeks. They vomited a mouthful of blood as their bodies spun in the air and fell miserably to the ground. In a few breaths, Xiao Chen easily broke the attacks of the three experts. He even executed a beautiful counterattack, sending Niu Dang and Dan Tianyu flying back. Xiao Chen's white robes fluttered, and his eyes remained calm like water. Then, he gently landed on the blue dragon image and looked at the three calmly. Damn it! Who is this person? Unexpectedly, he broke the attacks of three experts so easily. I have never heard of such an expert in the Tianwu domain before. Furthermore, he is so young. He seems to be cultivating his physical body. However, the quintessence in his body is very dense. Could he be a dual cultivator? The surrounding people were all stunned. They revealed doubtful expressions as they looked at the white-robed Xiao Chen. No matter how they thought about it, they could not imagine when such an expert appeared in the Tianwu domain. When Shimen Bao clearly saw Xiao Chen's appearance, he became thoroughly enraged. A murderous intent erupted in his eyes like a flood. He said coldly, First, you injured my Shimen clan's people. Now, you are here to snatch my dragon mark fruit. It looks like you are tired of living. Xiao Chen's face sank. A large part of the reason why he did not immediately leave after obtaining the dragon mark fruit was to teach this Shimen Bao a lesson. The Shimen clan's people were arrogant and despotic. First, they wanted to snatch Xiao Chen's earth essence fruit. Then, when they failed, they tried to kill him, setting up an ambush to kill him. He had never been a kind-hearted person. Even when he was bullied by others, he still had to swallow the humiliation. Xiao! A strong wind blew, and to everyone's surprise, Xiao Chen took the lead. His aura was like a berserk dragon, not waiting for Shimen Bao to finish speaking before he charged over. The image of a blue dragon condensed on Xiao Chen's fist. The dragon head roared ferociously as it charged at Shimen Bao. Shimen Bao smiled coldly and withdrew his sword light. Then, he swung his sword, infused with vast quintessence, at the dragon head, trying to shatter it. However, Xiao Chen was no longer the Xiao Chen of half a month ago. His vital qi had already broken through 1,000 tons of force. Every 500 tons of force was a threshold. With every threshold, there would be a qualitative improvement. On the surface, Xiao Chen's strength had only increased by 100 tons of force. However, it was on a completely different level from before. The dragon head and the sword clashed, neither giving way to the other. An intense explosion resulted in a strong wind surging out in all directions, kicking up a large amount of dust. The fist and the sword were evenly matched. Then, Xiao Chen opened his left hand and formed a claw. Then, he pressed forward and clawed at Shimen Bao's chest with the berserk dragon claw. Shimen Bao showed a shocked expression. He could not understand how Xiao Chen could improve so quickly. Just based on vital qi, Xiao Chen could fight him to a draw. However, the azure-colored dragon claw already arrived. Shimen Bao did not have much time to think. He pushed off the ground and retreated, trying to put some distance between them. The fist and the claw switched places. Xiao Chen followed Shimen Bao like a shadow, not giving him any chance to put some distance between them. Xiao Chen forced Shimen Bao back continuously. Xiao Chen's fist and claw contained 1,000 tons of force. When their vital chi exploded, the entire cave trembled. The rocks above them fell off. Niu Dang and Dan Tianyu had stood up long ago. When they saw Xiao Chen and Shimen Bao fighting, they did not make a move to help. Their gazes flickered as they searched for an opportunity. To them, both Shimen Bao and Xiao Chen were opponents. It would be best if the two fought to the death. Shimen Bao's expression turned increasingly unsightly. After Xiao Chen closed in, Shimen Bao no longer had a chance. He could only keep dodging, unable to find an opportunity to put some distance between them. Dan Tianyu, Niu Dang, how long are you two going to keep watching? Damn it! This old man is going to be crippled soon. Feeling helpless, Shimen Bao shouted at Niu Dang and Dan Tianyu. Niu Dang and Dan Tianyu could not help but show startled expressions. What kind of character was Shimen Bao? He was someone second only to the 7 giants of the Tianwu domain's younger generation. Shimen Bao had always been arrogant, despotic, and unreasonable. Unexpectedly, he ended up begging for mercy like that. Dan Tianyu said sullenly, let's work together to defeat this brat first. Then, we can fight for the dragon mark fruit. Niu Dang touched the footprint on his cheek with his right hand. A grave look flashed in his eyes as he nodded heavily. Xiao Chen had been observing Niu Dang and Dan Tianyu with his spiritual sense. He was very familiar with their actions. Xiao Chen's gaze turned cold, and he stopped wasting time with Shimen Bao. He used the armor-breaking fist to shatter Shimen Bao's protective quintessence before executing seizing the heart. Xiao Chen's 5 fingers turned into claws as he ruthlessly pressed them on Shimen Bao's chest. Dang! Xiao Chen's 5 fingers struck something hard. Xiao Chen's surekill strike did not succeed. He only managed to knock Shimen Bao back and vomit a mouthful of blood. It looks like the inner vest he is wearing is not ordinary. Xiao Chen frowned slightly. He guessed that Shimen Bao was wearing a life-saving secret treasure. He looked coldly at Shimen Bao, who fell to the ground, and ignored him. The blue dragon under Xiao Chen's feet circled around and turned around. When he saw Niu Dang and Dan Tianyu pouncing over again, Xiao Chen waved his left hand, and the lunar shadow saber appeared in his right hand. It is too late to think of working together now. At this moment, Niu Dang and Dan Tianyu no longer held back. They both used their trump cards, heaven-ranked martial techniques. Xiao Chen's gaze remained calm, not showing any fear. He silently circulated his energy for Soaring Dragon, and his vast quintessence flowed like a river in his body. Chapter 721. Hidden Dragon in the Depths, a gentleman takes action after planning. Soaring Dragon in the sky, its might shakes the surroundings. A surging energy surged throughout Xiao Chen's body. The blue dragon martial spirit hidden in his dantian moved gently and leaped out. Xiao Chen also took a gentle step in the air. With a light step, he caused the void to tremble, and the entire space to shake. The blue dragon martial spirit soared up. Just as it was about to break out of his body, Xiao Chen finally drew the saber in his hand. Xiao Chen transformed into a true dragon. His body merged with his saber like a true dragon that had been in hibernation for a long time. The sharp saber light was like a soaring true dragon swinging its claws in rage. The dragon soared into the sky, the man and the saber merged perfectly. There were no openings at all. At this moment, Xiao Chen was like a dragon, a soaring dragon. No one could stop him or block him. Xiao Chen's saber was the claws of this dragon's rage. Xiao Chen completely grasped the feeling of drawing his saber when soaring dragon in the sky, which he had been unable to find. On the contrary, Xiao Chen's mental state was clear. Aside from Niu Dang and Dan Tianyu executing their heaven-ranked martial techniques, he saw nothing else. Bang! The unparalleled saber move disappeared in a flash, shattering Niu Dang's and Dan Tianyu's incomplete heaven-ranked martial techniques. Although they were both heaven-ranked martial techniques, one grasped the move while the other only imitated it. At this moment, they were on completely different levels. From a distance, in that instant, Xiaochen looked like a true dragon, carrying an unparalleled might as he soared into the sky. Niu Dang and Dan Tianyu, who were blocking the true dragon, got knocked back in one exchange. The berserk saber chi easily broke their protective quintessence shields. The saber chi left countless wounds on their bodies, causing blood to spurt out. Horrifying wounds covered their entire bodies. They were so deep that their bones could be seen, excruciating pain. Clang! Xiaochen sheathed his saber. Then, he turned around and stood calmly in the air. He glanced at the two groaning people on the ground. Then, he looked at Shimen Bao, who was not far away, frightened silly when he climbed to his feet. An indiscernible look of disappointment flashed in his eyes, but he remained silent. After a while, Xiaochen rode on the blue dragon and left, leaving only his back to Shimen Bao, Niu Dang, and the others. These people didn't know that from now on, they could only see Xiaochen's back. Once he surpassed her, she would never have the chance to catch up. Shimen Bao was very excited. Shimen Bao caught the imperceptible disappointment in Xiaochen's eyes. That was contempt. Shimen Bao's talent was outstanding, second only to the 7 giants of the younger generation. However, today, a 5th-ranked white-robed bladesman looked down on him. Shimen Bao's emotions fluctuated too much, affecting the wound on his chest. He could not help but cough a few times. The more he coughed, the more painful it became. In the end, he actually coughed out a large mouthful of blood. In reality, he didn't know that even before Xiaochen's cultivation and strength increased, Xiaochen was already able to easily escape from his hands. It wasn't as simple as he thought. Now that Xiaochen's cultivation had increased significantly, his quintessence had refined twice, his vital qi had crossed the threshold of 1,000 tons of force, and he had comprehended the essence of soaring dragon. Naturally, it would be easy for Xiaochen to defeat Xiaochen. Everything was within reason. Now, among the younger generation of the Tianwu domain, only the 7 giants could suppress Xiaochen. I know who he is. Suddenly, an excited shout came from the crowd behind Xiaochen, sounding very anxious. He is that white-robed bladesman from the Haotian sect, the one who challenged Bai Wuxue. The challenge that Xiaochen issued to Bai Wuxue at Giant Sword Peak had already spread throughout the Tianwu domain. Everyone knew about it. However, most people just took it as a joke and did not care too much about it. Some even called Xiaochen a madman. However, at this moment, after seeing Xiaochen defeat Shimen Bao, Niu Dang, and Dan Tianyu, no one dared to look down on Xiaochen and say that Xiaochen was a madman. Is that him? This is incredible. No matter what, he is now qualified to challenge Bai Wuxue. It has been so many years. The 7 giants of the Tianwu domain are like a mountain, suppressing the younger generation. Perhaps the situation of the Tianwu domain, which has not changed for many years, is about to change. He should be going to the burial grounds. Bai Wuxue went there long ago. Come, let's go and take a look as well. Let's stop searching for treasures and go take a look. I really want to see what kind of sparks will fly when Bai Wuxue meets this brat. The disciples of the various sects felt excited, their blood surging uncontrollably. They all gave up on searching for treasures and chased after Xiaochen. Soon, all the cultivators in this place had left. Only Shimen Bao, Niu Dang, and Dan Tianyu remained, making the place seem rather deserted. Previously, the 3 of them had been the focus of everyone's attention when a huge battle was about to erupt. Who could have imagined that in the blink of an eye, everyone's attention would be snatched away by Xiaochen? They no longer paid any attention to the 3 of them, losing all interest in them. Niu Dang struggled to his feet. His earlier rage had already vanished. His gaze was calm as he cursed softly, for a heaven-ranked martial technique, power is the most important. I have to go back and comprehend my own power. Otherwise, I am nothing. After Xiaochen spoke, he did not care about anything else. Unexpectedly, he headed back, giving up on the fortuitous encounter in the True Dragon Cave. Shimen Bao suffered a heavy blow as well. He muttered, I finally understand the difference between me and the 7 giants. The experts of the Tianwu domain, second only to the 7 giants. Smiling self-mockingly, Shimen Bao said, in the past, I was very happy about this title. Now that I think about it, it is really laughable. There are at least 80 people who are second to the 7 giants. However, there are only 7 of the 7 giants. What do I count for? Shimen Bao felt incomparably fatigued. He shook his head and followed Niu Dang's footsteps, heading back. Perhaps losing the dragon mark fruit this time was not a bad thing. As for Dan Tianyu, he could not just leave like that. He was already very old. He needed to make use of this opportunity to see if he could find an opportunity to break through to half-sage. If he could not find one, he would remain a peak late-stage superior-grade martial monarch for the rest of his life, until he died. The burial ground has the remains of a true dragon. However, the competition is too intense. I will definitely not get a chance to obtain the good stuff. Coincidentally, the people here are all gone. I will search around. Dan Tianyu treated his injuries and started to search around the area. He hoped to find a few good treasures that he could exchange for some resources when he left. Riding on the blue dragon, Xiaoqin moved up and down. With the map to guide him, he moved very quickly. The burial ground had the remains of a true dragon. The entire skeleton of a true dragon was a treasure. Any piece of true dragon bone could be forged into a superior-grade bone weapon. It could also be ground into medicinal powder or refined into all sorts of precious medicinal pills. As for the vertebrae on the back, they could be forged into a bone dragon whip, a powerful bone weapon. To Xiao Chen, what he needed was the dragon marrow hidden in the vertebrae of a true dragon. However, the dragon marrow depended on the probability. Not every skeleton had the dragon marrow, which was why it was so precious. If nothing unexpected happened, all the half-sage experts who came for experiential training would appear in the burial ground. Not only the 7 giants and loose cultivators of the Tianwu domain but also the half-sage loose cultivators of the fiend race. Xiaoqin could foresee that the competition in the burial ground would be incredibly intense. With so many half-sage experts watching, it would be incredibly difficult for Xiaoqin to obtain the dragon marrow. Whether he could obtain what he wanted was still unknown. After about 7 or 8 minutes, the burial ground appeared before Xiaoqin's eyes. It was an extremely spacious cave. When Xiaoqin looked up, he saw that the ceiling was at least a kilometer above the ground. The vast cave was filled with dense true dragon qi. A vast dragon might was everywhere, assaulting one's face and making breathing difficult. There were 5 true dragon remains in the cave. There were at least 2 teams fighting intensely for each true dragon skeleton. This was especially so for the largest true dragon skeleton in the middle. There were 7 or 8 half-sages engaged in a horrifying battle. No one dared to approach rashly. The terrifying energy ripples in the air did not stop for even a second. The sound of weapons clashing could be heard continuously. The scene was extremely chaotic. Occasionally, the miserable cries of cultivators rang out. For the sake of the most precious treasures in the true dragon cave, everyone's eyes turned bloodshot. Xiaoqin looked around and finally found Shui Lingling. She led Hu Hai's group and fought with the extreme Yin sect disciples led by Bai Wuxue, fighting for a true dragon skeleton. However, the situation did not look good. Xiao Chen and Bai Wuxue were evenly matched. However, the extreme Yin sect disciples forced Hu Hai and the others into a retreat. The situation was grim. If Hu Hai and the others were defeated, the remaining true inheritors of the extreme Yin sect would be able to free themselves and break the stalemate between Xiao Chen and Bai Wuxue. Then, they would no longer be able to obtain that true dragon skeleton. When Xiao Chen noticed Wang Cheng, he paused for a moment and suppressed the murderous intent in his heart. Then, he grasped his lunar shadow saber and calmly flew in the direction of Shui Lingling and the others. The extreme Yin sect was one of the 9 ranks of the great families in the north. There were 2 publicly known Emperor Wu in the sect. They had deep accumulations and were stronger than the Haotian sect. The true inheritors of the extreme Yin sect were stronger than the Haoyan sect. Hu Hai, Jun Si, Wang Cheng, and Qin Shao each had to fight one person each. It was very taxing for them. All of them had a few wounds on their bodies, and their combat prowess plummeted. The situation was dire. Hee. Hu Hai, you can't hold on for much longer. In that case, you should give up. This true dragon skeleton is definitely our extreme Yin sects. The one fighting Hu Hai was a tall and skinny disciple of the extreme Yin sect. He wore blue robes and held a 1-meter-long sword in his hand. His exquisite sword techniques and deep cultivation completely suppressed Hu Hai's huge axe, preventing him from bringing it out. The huge axe was originally focused on large swings, advancing indomitably and tyrannically. However, at this moment, Hu Hai's movements were flustered and he could only defend passively. The extreme Yin sect swordsman completely grasped the rhythm of the battle, forcing Hu Hai into a sorry state. If he was not careful, his protective quintessence would break, and a sword wound would appear on his body. Hu Hai clenched his teeth and did not say anything. He stubbornly resisted the other party's attacks, doing his best to find an opportunity to turn the situation around. Chapter 722. The cultivations of the other three were even lower than Hu Hai's. Clearly, they were in an even worse state. They were surrounded by danger, like fallen leaves in a strong wind. They could fall at any moment. Shui Lingling, who was fighting by Wuxue, wanted to help. However, she could not free herself. After all, Xiaoqin was best at mid-range and long-range combat. If she could distance herself from Bai Wuxue and fight one-on-one, she would definitely be stronger than him. However, at this moment, Shui Lingling was in close combat, swinging her purple bow. She simply could not free herself to do so. It was already very difficult for Xiaoqin to remain undefeated against Bai Wuxue. Bai Wuxue had a relaxed expression. Snowflakes drifted around him as he stood amidst the wind and snow. He smiled faintly and said, "Shui Lingling, I admit that you are stronger than me. Unfortunately, your junior brothers are not up to standard. I advise you to give up on this true dragon remains, lest you humiliate yourself in the future." Shui Lingling showed a slightly angry expression as she thought to herself, if Xiaoqin were here, I would not be in such a passive position. Thinking of Xiaoqin, Shui Lingling immediately blamed herself. If she had not insisted on going through the true dragon storm back then, Xiaoqin would not have died in there. Xiao. Bai Wuxue's eyes lit up. He immediately caught on to the opening that Shui Lingling revealed while she was distracted. He pressed forward, and snowflakes gathered in his palm. His palm immediately turned as smooth as jade as he pressed it towards Shui Lingling at lightning speed. It was silent and contained a strong killing intent. By the time Shui Lingling reacted, it was already too late to dodge. She could only receive this palm strike head-on. The cold chi poured into Shui Lingling's body like a gust of wind. Her red lips turned pale, and a faint layer of frost covered her fine black hair. Shui Lingling vomited a mouthful of blood and quickly retreated 100 meters. Then, she quickly circulated the profound yang art, and a white mist rose from her body. Only after she expelled the cold chi from her body did her complexion improve. The wind and snow did not stop, and cold chi spread everywhere. Bai Wuxue smiled coldly and said, "Shui Lingling, to think that you would make such a low-level mistake. You really disappoint me." Bang! Suddenly, a painful cry came from below. It was the Haoyan sect's Jun Si. She finally could not hold on any longer, and her weapon was knocked out of her hand by her opponent. After that, Jun Si was sent flying with a palm strike. She vomited a mouthful of blood, her face pale. The person who injured her laughed sinisterly. With a flicker, he wanted to give her the final blow. When Bai Wuxue saw this scene, he could not help but laugh loudly. He shouted coldly, "Shui Lingling, you have already suffered a crushing defeat. Are you still going to persist?" Reluctance appeared on Shui Lingling's pretty face. However, now that the situation had turned around and she no longer had any chance, she could only give up. The hearts of Hu Hai and the others were filled with despair. It was not easy for them to arrive at this burial ground, but in the end, it was all for naught. They could not obtain anything. Huff! Just at this moment, a gust of wind blew past and swept up Jun Si's body. The wind spun around and pounced toward the person who had injured her. Boom! Suddenly, a thunderous explosion resounded in the calm air, causing space to tremble. That extreme Yin sect disciple cried out miserably. His ribs broke, and he went flying back in a sorry state, crashing into the huge true dragon remains. That extreme Yin sect disciple's face twisted in unbearable pain. Blood flowed out of a corner of his mouth like a fountain, and a deep reluctance appeared in his eyes. The sudden appearance of a strong wind shocked everyone. They could not help but pause as they looked over. The strong wind stopped. Xiao Chen, who was riding on 3 blue dragons and executing the cloud-soaring art to its limits, slowly revealed himself. Junior brother Xiao Chen, you are not dead. Jun Si, who was in Xiao Chen's embrace, opened her eyes wide, filled with boundless joy. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. Then, he extended his hand and sent out a gentle energy, slowly pushing Jun Si's body down. Hu Hai's and Qin Zhao's faces lit up with joy. When they saw that Xiao Chen had returned alive and that his strength had improved significantly, even injuring an extreme Yin sect disciple with one palm strike, their spirits were lifted. Only Wang Qing paled. His heart trembled as if he had seen a nightmare. He muttered, "How can this fellow not be dead?" However, Wang Cheng's opponent did not care at all. Taking advantage of Wang Cheng's state of confusion, he kicked Wang Cheng's face and sent him flying. Xiao Chen gently drifted over to Shui Lingling's side. He said, "First senior sister, leave this person to me. You go down and deal with those bugs." When Shui Lingling saw that Xiao Chen was not dead, the knot in her heart immediately loosened. A smile finally appeared on her cold face. However, when she heard Xiao Chen say that, she asked somewhat worriedly, "Can you really do it?" Xiao Chen smiled confidently. Then, he looked at Bai Wuxue and said, "Naturally, it is impossible to defeat him. However, blocking 100 moves from him will be easy." After 100 moves, Shui Lingling would definitely deal with the problem below. At that time, she would surround Bai Wuxue and defeat him without a doubt. "I believe in you." Shui Lingling smiled gently and floated down. She gently pulled back her bowstring and forced Hu Hai's opponent to retreat quickly. Bai Wuxue was expressionless as he looked coldly at Xiao Chen. He smiled in disdain and said, "I really wonder what fortuitous encounter you had to give you such confidence that you want to die so badly." Xiao Chen smiled gently and drew the lunar shadow saber with his left hand. Then, he stood on the blue dragon image and said calmly, "I will stand here. Let's see how you are going to kill me." Great Ice Palm. The snowflakes drifting in the air suddenly gathered together and formed a huge ice palm. It appeared out of nowhere and pressed towards Xiao Chen like an ice mountain. This move appeared out of nowhere and was untraceable. However, it was extraordinarily mighty. It had once reduced Xiao Chen to a sorry state. The purple clouds gathered in Xiao Chen's dantians scattered and turned into surging quintessence. They flowed through Xiao Chen's meridians like a surging river. Instantly, Xiao Chen's quintessence surged, and his clothes fluttered without any wind. He circulated all his quintessence at this moment. The immortal state of thunder and the perfect 70% comprehended saber intent all gathered together. Xiao Chen was extremely focused. A saber light flashed, and a purple bolt of lightning tore through the sky. It lit up the dark burial ground. Saber intent, state, quintessence, everything gathered on the lunar shadow saber and turned into a resplendent purple saber light surging out. Ka Xie. The light paused, and the great ice palm was chopped in half. It brushed past Xiao Chen and shattered, turning into ice shards filling the air. The residual static in the air crackled and exploded into water droplets, falling to the ground. Pointing his saber at Bai Wuxue, Xiaoqin stood on the blue dragon. His white robes fluttered, and a boundless fighting spirit filled his heart. Seeing Xiaoqin break his great ice palm so easily, Bai Wuxue's pupils constricted. He was clearly surprised. He clearly remembered that half a month ago, when Xiaoqin faced his great ice palm, he was in a sorry state. Xiaoqin had to use his trump card before he could barely block it. How could Xiaoqin improve so much in such a short time? They're fighting. They're really fighting. When the sect cultivators who had chased after Xiaoqin saw Xiaoqin pointing his saber at Bai Wuxue, they immediately cried out. There were 5 true dragon remains in the burial ground. Naturally, the place where the most intense battle took place was the one in the center, where the Thunder and Lightning Palaces and Juanxi fought against 5 fiend race loose cultivators. And Juanxi's strength was as strong as the rumors said. As electric light flashed around, he easily fought against the 5 fiend race loose cultivators. And Juanxi stood proudly on the dragon skeleton. With 1 person and 1 whip, he firmly suppressed the 5 fiend race half-sage loose cultivators, keeping them at bay. However, Juanxi had been famous for a long time already. Although such strength was shocking, it was within reason. The fight was not as exciting as the one between Xiaoqin and Bai Wuxue. The 7 giants of the Tianwu domain had not met with a proper challenger for many years. These 7 giants held noble statuses and were famous far and wide. There were rumors of them everywhere. They had stood strong for more than 10 years, and their golden reputation was deeply rooted in everyone's hearts. Originally, everyone treated Xiaoqin as a joke. However, when they saw Xiaoqin defeat Shimen Bao, Niu Deng, and Dan Tianyu, 3 experts, no one dared to think that way anymore. Chapter 723. The many cultivators who followed all focused their gazes on Xiaoqin and Bai Wuxue, clearly excited. After not seeing you for some time, you have become more capable. However, in the end, you will not be able to escape death. Bai Wuxue snorted coldly. His figure flashed, and a boundless snowflake appeared. In an instant, he arrived before Xiaoqin and sent a palm strike at Xiaoqin's head. 3 azure dragons circled around Xiaoqin as he took 3 steps back. His saber light danced around, giving off resplendent electric light. It blasted the drifting snowflakes into raindrops, which fell to the ground one by one. The other party's state of ice was extremely strong. It had already touched the boundary of the will of ice. If Xiaoqin could not use his state of thunder to neutralize it, it would severely affect his speed. When the cold qi entered the body and accumulated to a certain level, it would turn into a cold poison. At that time, he would lose even if he did not lose. Although Xiaoqin's state of thunder was weaker than his opponent's, it contained the immortal attribute. It would not crumble that easily. Bang! Bai Wuxue's palm was as smooth as jade, giving off a cold light. When it touched the saber, it gave off a cold light and instantly sealed the lunar shadow saber in ice. A frost-like white mist spread from the tip of the saber to the hilt, trying to seal Xiaoqin in ice. Xiaoqin clenched 2 fingers on his left hand. His expression did not change as he placed them on the bottom of the saber. The dense lightning-attributed quintessence turned into a lightning-attributed fire that soared upwards. The fire immediately melted the cold qi, and the hot qi scattered like a white mist. However, Bai Wuxue did not even bother to look at it. He continued forward and used his palm as a saber, hacking at Xiaoqin's head. The drifting snowflakes condensed into a line and formed a saber light that was as cold as metal. When the cold light appeared, it gave off a dazzling, snow-white light. Xiaoqin leaned back and quickly dodged, not giving Bai Wuxue a chance to get close. Xiao! Bai Wuxue's earlier saber light turned into an ice mirror. If Xiaoqin had been too fast, he would have been stuck in the ice mirror. Snowflakes drifted down, and lightning flashed everywhere. The 2 people in the air moved faster and faster, so fast that it was hard to distinguish them. He could only see 2 blurry shadows, one white and one blue. The blue shadow was cold and threatening, while the white shadow was filled with electricity. The saber chi and the palm wind clashed. Boundless energy flew in all directions and blasted deep pits on the ground. Strange, who exactly is it? Even after Bai Wuxue used his full strength, he could not land quickly. Wang Meng, who had already won, stood on a true dragon corpse, looking confused. Wang Meng was the most flamboyant of the 7 giants. Even if he met Nguyen Muyun, one of the 3 holy masters, he would not back down. He asked his fellow disciples behind him, "Who is that white figure? Do any of you know?" The others scratched their heads, unable to figure it out. A younger female disciple said uncertainly, "Could it be that madman from the Haotian sect? That person also likes to wear white. He is also a bladesman." When that female disciple finished talking about Shao Chen, Wang Meng's expression changed slightly. An excited expression flashed in his eyes as he said, "Interesting." Unexpectedly, such a madman appeared in the Tianwu domain. Unexpectedly, I, Wang Meng, did not know about it. Across from Wang Meng was another of the 7 giants, Jiang Ziyuan. He had lost to Wang Meng in the fight for the true dragon corpse. At this moment, he focused his attention on the battle between Shao Chen and Bai Wuxue. Jiang Ziyuan held a spear and revealed a contemplative expression. He smiled and said, "This person's saber intent seems to have reached 70% comprehension as well. Are you not afraid that he will surpass you?" Wang Meng carried a dragon-tooth saber on his back. He smiled and said, "Aside from Feng Xingsheng, I look down on all the bladesmen of the Tianwu domain. I can't wait for more people like him. The more, the better. My saber has not met an opponent for a long time." On another true dragon corpse, Feng Xingsheng, who defeated the scions of the Zhang clan and the Jun clan of the Tianwu domain's 4 noble clans, entered deep thought as he watched Shao Chen fight with Bai Wuxue. A disciple behind Feng Xingsheng said with some astonishment, "First senior brother, this white-robed bladesman really fought with Bai Wuxue. Furthermore, he did not lose." Feng Xingsheng slowly sheathed his saber and sighed softly, "Originally, I intended to challenge Bai Wuxue among the 7 giants. It looks like I will have to change to someone else this time." Back when Feng Xingsheng learned that Shao Chen was going to fight Bai Wuxue, he had been interested in taking a look. However, he had not expected Shao Chen to win. Now that Feng Xingsheng saw Shao Chen's strength, it was hard to say. Given another half a year, even if Shao Chen could not defeat Bai Wuxue, he might be able to match Bai Wuxue. If that was the case, there would be no point in challenging Bai Wuxue. The scions of the Zhang clan and the Jun clan focused their attention on this battle as well. Challenging the 7 giants was the dream of many outstanding talents of the younger generation. However, after so many years, as the 7 giants became more and more dazzling, no one had taken this step for a long time. They were all afraid of humiliating themselves and losing their reputation. Now, there was a person who was only a medial-grade martial monarch, yet he could fight with Bai Wuxue to such a degree. This was a huge blow to both of them. And Juanxi, who was currently fighting with the 5 fiend race half-sages on the skeleton in the center, also paid some attention to the battle between Shao Chen and Bai Wuxue. And Juanxi did not think much of the 7 giants. The main reason was the immortal state of thunder that Shao Chen used, which attracted his attention. The immortal state of thunder. If I have time, I should exchange pointers with this person. Even several sage elders of the Thunder and Lightning Palace have not comprehended the immortal state of thunder. Hu Qi. A fiend race loose cultivator wanted to take advantage of the moment and Juanxi was distracted to forcefully charge in and take him down, snatching away the most precious dragon skeleton. And Juanxi smiled coldly and flicked his wrist. The electric whip became like a berserk dragon, showing its ferocity. The other 4 loose cultivators cried out in pain. Originally, this was in Juanxi's opening. However, when the 5 worked together, one of them left the formation and immediately turned the situation around to his advantage. The fiend race loose cultivator who sneak attacked in Juanxi was startled and quickly fled. The 5 fiend race loose cultivators regrouped, no longer daring to move rashly. Dance of Snow, 100 Flowers Bloom. Bai Wuxue attacked for a long time, unable to take down Xiao Chen. Finally, he got angry and executed a heaven-ranked martial technique, wanting to take down Xiao Chen in one move. If Bai Wuxue could not take down Xiao Chen in front of so many people of the same generation, then his reputation would be ruined. Under Bai Wuxue's control, the snowflakes drifting down from the air all turned into white flower buds. The flower buds bloomed and quickly absorbed the ice-attributed spiritual energy in the surroundings. The formless ice-attributed energy seemed to turn solid at this moment. Thousands of tiny, crystalline white lights appeared in the air, reflecting the light. The light illuminated the ice flower buds, making them crystalline and beautiful. The thousands of flower buds covered the sky, preventing anyone from dodging. Bai Wuxue looked at Xiao Chen and smiled coldly. 100 flowers bloom. Bloom. Right after Bai Wuxue spoke, many crystalline ice flower buds suddenly bloomed. They were like pure and holy women revealing their charming faces and smiling faintly. The thousands of flowers bloomed. This scene was pure and beautiful. However, it contained a fatal threat. The thousands of flower petals danced around, forming a bone-chilling wind current. The ice flowers shot towards Xiao Chen. Every petal contained a formidable ice attribute true essence. These tens of thousands of ice flowers were like ice flowers. These thousands of ice flowers were like a snowstorm. As long as one landed on a person, it would result in severe internal injuries. Xiao Chen could not let the ice flowers get close to him, not even one. Xiao Chen's expression turned grave. At the crucial moment, he held his saber with his right hand and executed the upgraded version of Saber Light Thunder Shadow, Ghostly Image Chop. Saber lights danced around. In an instant, Xiao Chen sent out 72 saber lights. Each saber light quickly split into 3. Instantly, saber images containing the state of thunder filled Xiao Chen's surroundings. The saber images were densely packed, encasing him tightly without any gaps. Bang! 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 In the blink of an eye, one ice flower after another collided with the blade's shadow, causing a loud sound to erupt. It was like an avalanche, dull and deep. In the spacious burial ground, the sound reverberated unceasingly, causing the entire ground to shake violently. The snowy mountains exploded, shattering like rocks for 500 kilometers. Such a scene seemed to appear before everyone's eyes, they felt like they were there. The dull sounds did not stop for even a moment. Every time an ice flower exploded, it would release horrifying ice-attributed energy. Dance of Snow, hundreds of flowers bloomed. They were as magnificent as light, so beautiful that they could break one's heart. The many cultivators watching from a distance were astonished. Bai Wuxue truly lived up to his reputation as one of the 7 giants. A strong wind blew, and snowflakes fell. Xiao Chen's figure was completely hidden in the snowstorm, no one knew if he was dead or alive. It's over. This Xiao Chen will probably be severely injured even if he does not die. Bai Wuxue is getting serious. It's been so many years since I saw Bai Wuxue use a heaven-ranked martial technique. For this Xiao Chen to be able to force Bai Wuxue to this extent, it is worth it. After all, he is one of the 7 giants. Xiao Chen was too rash. He should have stopped while he was ahead. The disciples of the various sects outside the burial ground discussed the situation. They all felt deep admiration for Xiao Chen for being able to force Bai Wuxue to this extent. However, they all thought that this was as far as he could go. Jiang Ziyuan, one of the 7 giants, held his spear and smiled gently. This fellow is still a little rash. However, since he did not die and managed to survive, he is quite a character. However, Wang Meng, who was on the true dragon remains, shook his head slightly and said, "It might not be what you think." Jiang Ziyuan frowned and said, "Could there be other variables?" Bai Wuxue's Dance of Snow can already bring out 70% of its might. If he executed it, it would be difficult for us to deal with him. Wang Meng did not bother to argue. He smiled and said, "Keep watching and you will know." As the ice and snow flew, Bai Wushue's expression relaxed somewhat. He was very clear on the might of his dance of snow. Bai Wushue glanced at the battlefield below. Two powerful people from the extreme Yin sect were currently holding back Shui Lingling. She would not be able to extricate herself for a while. Good. In that case, I will take this opportunity to end this scourge. Bai Wushue's gaze turned cold. He made up his mind. After this move was over, he would eliminate the severely injured Xiao Chen, not leaving behind any future problems. Just at this moment, a strand of purple electric light suddenly appeared in the white world of ice and snow. Following that, the sound of surging water came from the ice and snow. Boom! The sound of water grew louder and louder. It was like a boundless ocean, vast and boundless. When it erupted, it crushed all the ice and snow into dust. Chapter 724. A purple sea appeared in front of Bai Wushue. This was a sea made purely of electricity, sweeping away all the ice flowers. What's going on? A sea of lightning has appeared. It's Xiao Chen. That sea of lightning is a phenomenon created by Xiao Chen. He actually blocked that move. Exclamations rose one after another. Everyone's expression was slightly startled. They never expected Xiao Chen to be so powerful and unexpectedly block the attack. Jiang Ziyuan was stunned and said, "Wang Meng, you already knew." Wang Meng smiled faintly and said, "I am the same as you, unable to see through that world of ice and snow. It is only the purest feeling of a bladesman." Xiao. Suddenly, a strand of saber light shot out of the sea of lightning from somewhere. It was like a rainbow piercing through the sun, disappearing in a flash. It was so fast that no one could catch it. This elusive saber strike made Bai Wushue feel the threat of death for some reason. At this critical moment, Bai Wushue's rich combat experience, which he had accumulated for many years, made him feel the threat of death. Coupled with his half-saint cultivation and sharp reflexes, he quickly dodged to the side in the time it took for a spark to fly. Chi! A dim light flashed, and a few strands of hair fell from Bai Wushue's forehead. They drifted to the ground, brushing past the Grim Reaper. Dragon subduing / Blue Dragon goes to sea. Seeing that his first move had failed, Xiao Chen immediately switched to another one. His feet stepped on the blue dragon's shadow. Xiao Chen suddenly braked in the air and flew past Bai Wushue. Then, he immediately stopped. The sudden stop produced a thunderous sonic boom that exploded in everyone's eardrums. The mysterious phenomenon of a vast sea materialized behind Xiao Chen. 990 dragon pillars soared into the sky, and a blue dragon leaped out of the sea. Xiao Chen brandished the dragon-shaped saber Qi and used the aura of a blue dragon emerging from the sea to attack Bai Wushue. The battle happened in a breath of time. That strand of saber light chopped off Bai Wushue's hair and immediately turned into a dragon-shaped saber light, attacking. He did not give his opponent any chance to execute his martial technique. At the crucial moment of life and death, Bai Wushue remained extremely calm. He brought out his half-sage cultivation to its limits. His clothes fluttered wildly, and his hair suddenly turned white. A cold light blossomed on his hands, and the radiance overflowed in all directions, dazzling and glaring. Ka! When Bai Wushue saw the incoming saber blade, he shouted. His hands, which were glowing with a cold light, clapped down and clamped down on the saber blade. Boom! A horrifying clump of energy immediately burst out behind Bai Wushue. 100-meter-wide pit appeared in the cave wall, turning pitch black. However, Bai Wushue's body did not move at all in midair. He used his strong cultivation to receive Xiao Chen's heaven-ranked martial technique head-on. People couldn't help but sigh at the profound cultivation and courage of the 7 tycoons. Blood leaked out of a corner of Bai Wushue's lips as he clamped down on the saber. He looked at Xiao Chen and smiled, "White-robed bladesman, you really surprised me." However, suppressing the cold qi in your body must be very painful, right? Xiao Chen's lips paled slightly. It was indeed as Bai Wuxue said. There was no way to completely dodge that dance of snow. Even though Xiao Chen managed to dodge the ice flowers, the cold qi that appeared from the start had already silently entered his body. Just take care of yourself. Xiao Chen's blood surged as he instantly activated the sovereign's bloodline in his body. A distant, noble, ancient, heavy, and epic sovereign's aura surged towards Bai Wuxue. With the sovereign's aura at such a close distance, Bai Wuxue could not help but take a step back. However, he quickly recovered. However, Xiao Chen took advantage of this opportunity to draw the lunar shadow saber from Bai Wuxue's hand. Then, he quickly executed the second move of the dragon subduing slash. Xiao Chen turned into a true dragon, and his body merged with his saber. Then, he stomped on the air, causing space to tremble endlessly. A saber light flickered like a true dragon bearing its claws in rage as it flew at Bai Wuxue. Bai Wuxue's expression changed slightly. With one glance, he could tell that this move was different from the previous one. It required a martial technique. Dance of snow, 100 flowers contend. Bai Wuxue's hands formed hand seals, and the dancing snowflakes in front of him suddenly condensed into all sorts of ice flowers. There were azaleas, peonies, roses, white flowers, and hundreds of other flowers. They formed 100 flowers formation made of ice and snow. They competed with each other and formed a strange aura, firmly locking down the space. The true dragon and the 100 flowers formation clashed and gave off a loud sound. The two each took 100 steps back. For the first time, the aura of soaring dragon did not knock anyone away. Instead, it barely managed to fight evenly. The flowers withered and turned back into dancing snowflakes. The blood at the corner of Bai Wuxue's lips was very eye-catching in the white snow. What kind of monster did I provoke? Unexpectedly, he even grasped the aura of a heaven-ranked martial technique. Bai Wuxue stared at the pale Xiao Chen. The shock in his heart could not be described with words. Incredible. Unexpectedly, he even comprehended the aura of a heaven-ranked martial technique. The passionate young master, Murong Lingfeng, who fought to a draw with Luo Zixiao on a true dragon corpse, gently waved his folding fan. Luo Zixiao, who was holding a sword beside Murong Lingfeng, said calmly, however, his situation is not optimistic. The dance of snow contains cold poison. The cold poison that has accumulated in his body has probably reached a certain level already. Murong Lingfeng smiled faintly and said, "It's fine. Shui Lingling is already free." Bai Wuxue gently wiped away the blood at the corner of his lips. Then, he looked at the pale Xiao Chen, who was clearly suffering from the cold poison. Just as Bai Wuxue was about to make a move, he suddenly felt an extremely dangerous gaze on him. As long as he made any strange movements, he would immediately face death. Bai Wuxue already guessed what was going on. He looked around, and it was indeed as he expected. Shui Lingling, who was on the ground, had already dealt with the few ruthless people of the extreme Yin sect. She had already drawn her purple bow, which contained immortal qi, into the shape of a full moon. An arrow made of pure profound sun true flame was knocked on the bow. Shui Lingling's purple robes fluttered as she looked at Bai Wuxue coldly. Her meaning was clear without saying. Bai Wuxue glanced at the extreme Yin sect true inheritors lying on the ground, firmly subdued by Hu Hai and the others. He knew that he had lost his advantage. The priceless and inestimable true dragon corpse was no longer of any use to him. Then, Bai Wuxue raised his head and looked at Xiao Chen. He sighed ruefully. When he first met Xiao Chen, he had used less than 50% of his strength to force the other party to flee. When Bai Wuxue heard the other party challenge him, he had treated it as a joke. He felt that it was an insult to his reputation and only wanted to kill this person casually. Bai Wuxue had never truly treated Xiao Chen as an opponent. He had never felt that Xiao Chen was dangerous, so he had not taken Xiao Chen's challenge to heart. However, in a mere 2 months, Xiao Chen's strength had advanced by leaps and bounds. Bai Wuxue had used close to 100% of his strength, but he had still failed to deal with Xiaochen quickly. Instead, he had gotten injured. Now, Bai Wuxue had no choice but to seriously consider this challenge. Bai Wuxue withdrew his hand and scattered his state of ice. Then, he looked at Xiaochen and said in a cold voice, "The Haotian sect's Xiaochen, as the top true inheritor of the extreme Yin sect, I ask you, are you really willing to challenge me?" Xiaochen waved his hand and scattered his immortal state of thunder. Then, he sheathed his saber and said calmly, "I already said it long ago. I will not repeat myself." Bai Wuxue narrowed his eyes and smiled coldly. "Very well. In that case, I formally accept your challenge before all the younger generation of the Tianwu domain. I'll give you 1 year. Within this 1 year, the extreme Yin sect will not send anyone to seek trouble for you." After saying that, Bai Wuxue flung his sleeves and led the extreme Yin sect's true inheritors away from the burial grounds with cold expressions. Looking at Bai Wuxue's departing figure, the disciples of the various sects were deep in thought. Since Bai Wuxue became famous, countless people had challenged him, wanting to use him as a stepping stone for their own fame. However, without exception, all these people fell at his feet, seeking their own humiliation. Bai Wuxue had accepted hundreds of challenges. However, he had never formally accepted any of them. Today, he had accepted Xiaochen's challenge before all the younger generation of the Tianwu domain. This was truly surprising. As they looked at Xiaochen, they all felt envious. After this, the name of the white-robed bladesman, Xiaochen, will spread throughout the entire Tianwu domain. That goes without saying. Bai Wuxue officially accepted this challenge. This is unprecedented. In the future, this battle will definitely attract everyone's attention. Strange, Bai Wuxue has met opponents before as well. However, he never acknowledged them. Could it be that Xiaochen is really that strong? Bai Wuxue gave Xiaochen 1 year. I wonder what he is thinking. As one of the 7 giants, he definitely has his own pride. He does not fear a true challenge. He probably did not take Xiaochen seriously in the past. Bai Wuxue's acknowledgement of Xiaochen's challenge was like dropping a bomb into a calm lake. It immediately incited a lot of discussion, making the place extraordinarily bustling. Xiaochen's gaze was as calm as still water. He did not think that Bai Wuxue's acknowledgement was a big deal. Xiaochen had always been indifferent to his reputation. He only knew that Bai Wuxue had injured him, bullied him, and humiliated him. So, he should return the favor. That was all. Xiaochen gently drifted down and landed beside Shui Lingling. He said softly, "First senior sister, fortunately, I did not disappoint you. I managed to block a few moves from Bai Wuxue." Shui Lingling smiled and said, "Don't say anything first. I'll use the profound sun true flame to help you purge the cold poison in your body." Bai Wuxue's cold poison had already entered Xiaochen's body. However, it was not as severe as others guessed. Xiaochen's physical body had already reached rank 1 sage body. His skin, blood, bones, and meridians had all been tempered several times. It was extremely difficult for the cold poison to break through the layers of defense and enter his internal organs. Furthermore, Xiaochen cultivated lightning-attributed quintessence, which was somewhat effective against this cold poison. As long as Xiaochen did not continue fighting and did not purposely treat himself, the cold poison would slowly be purged over time. Xiaochen was aware of his own situation. However, since Shui Lingling wanted to help, it would be unreasonable of him to reject her. So, he allowed Shui Lingling to send a clump of gentle profound sun true flame into his body. Qi! Qi! The profound sun true flame circulated through Xiaochen's body and easily purged all the cold poison. The process was so smooth that it shocked Shui Lingling. After the cold poison left his body, Xiaochen's somewhat unsightly expression immediately recovered its luster, and he became spirited. Shui Lingling withdrew her hand and smiled. "Your physical body is really terrifyingly strong. I wonder, if you are a half-sage, who in the younger generation of the Tianwu domain can stop you? Chapter 725. When Xiaochen heard this, he smiled faintly. However, he looked at the true dragon remains in the center without any pride in his eyes. The 5 fiend race loose cultivators there had already revealed their fiend forms. However, Anjuanshi still held the initiative. He stood on the head of the massive true dragon skeleton and lashed out with a lightning whip, beating the 5 fiend race loose cultivators into submission. Let's not talk about this anymore. Let's split this true dragon remains. Hopefully, we will be lucky enough to find a few drops of dragon marrow. Shui Lingling smiled as she called everyone over. The others had already gone far away, but Xiaochen did not move. Everyone could not help but look at him strangely, not knowing what Xiaochen wanted to do. This person, he is not qualified to split the true dragon remains, Xiaochen said calmly and coldly as he looked at Wang Qing expressionlessly. When Hu Hai and the others heard this, their expressions changed. They felt very confused. Xiaochen's words were rather hurtful, not in line with his character at all. Sweat appeared on Wang Cheng's forehead as his heart trembled. What should have happened had finally happened. Xiaochen really did not intend to let him off. When Wang Qing saw Xiaochen return and the strength he displayed, he had already anticipated his ending. However, now that it really happened, he could not help but feel extremely nervous. Chen Xiao said, "Junior brother Xiaochen, although Wang Qing said some unpleasant things and was somewhat disrespectful to you, we are all from the same sect. There is no need to be so ruthless." Shui Lingling's gaze wandered around. When she saw the pale and trembling Wang Qing, she felt that something was wrong. She frowned and said, "Don't say anything first. Let Xiaochen finish." Xiaochen's eyes flashed with murderous intent as he stared at Wang Qing. Then, he enunciated every word clearly, "Back in the true dragon storm, I did not fall down by accident. Instead, he sneak attacked and kicked me down." Buzz. Right after Xiaochen said that, everyone's minds buzzed. They could not believe that what Xiaochen said was true. Jun Si's pretty face turned cold. She immediately said angrily, "Wang Qing, is what junior brother Xiaochen said true?" Hu Hai remained silent. He looked at Wang Qing helplessly. Given Hu Hai's understanding of Xiaochen's character, there was no need to accuse Wang Qing. Furthermore, when Xiaochen fell into the true dragon storm, it was indeed very strange. Even Jun Si, the weakest among them, had not been pulled out. How could Xiaochen have been pulled out by the storm? However, despite their suspicions, no one thought that it was Wang Qing. No matter what, they were Wang Qing. They were Xiaochen. Wang Qing glanced at Shui Lingling's expression. Shui Lingling's murderous aura was restrained, without the slightest trace of emotion. The last trace of hope in his heart was completely dashed. Now, there was Shui, Wang, Xiao Lingling Xiao No. And he, Shui, Ling, Xiaochen Tian, Chen, Chen, Xiao, and Ling Xiaochen of Qin Xiao. And Ling. Run. Wang Qing could not be bothered with Jun Si's question. Without saying anything else, he turned and ran. Only by leaving this place could he survive. Given Wang Cheng's movement technique, as long as Shui Lingling did not make a move, he would not be able to catch up to him in this chaotic burial ground. If the others wanted to catch up to him, they would have to put in a lot of effort, including Xiaochen. Boom. However, Wang Qing underestimated the rage in Shui Lingling's heart. He had only moved 200 meters when a fiery light flashed like a meteor. Then, Wang Cheng's head exploded into a pool of scarlet light. Shui Lingling gently put down the bow in her hand. She had a complicated expression as she sighed. Originally, I prepared the flowing light arrow to deal with Bai Wuxue. Unexpectedly, I used it on my own people. Wang Cheng's headless corpse slowly fell over. When the people in the surroundings saw this scene, they were startled, not knowing what happened. How strange. Shui Lingling would actually attack her own people, Murong Lingfeng said suspiciously as he jumped down from the true dragon's remains. Luo Zixiao, who fought Shao Qin to a draw, said indifferently, the internal affairs of the Haotian sect have nothing to do with us. Let's see if this true dragon remains have dragon marrow first. If there is, this trip will be worth it. Murong Lingfeng counted the vertebrae of the true dragon remains one by one. When he reached the 9th vertebrae, he stopped. Ha ha. I advise you not to get your hopes up. These are all secondary dragons. The chances of them having dragon marrow are not high. The one that Anjuanshi is fighting for is the one with the highest chance. Murong Lingfeng said calmly as he removed the 9th vertebra with a faint smile. Among the true dragons, there were also ranks. Generally speaking, a true dragon cave would only have one master, and the rest would be its subordinates. Clearly, in this burial ground, the largest true dragon skeleton under Anjuanshi's feet was the true master of this place. The chances of this true dragon skeleton containing dragon marrow were also the highest. Otherwise, the loose cultivators of the fiend race would not have worked together to make a move. Nor would Anjuanshi be so interested. Naturally, Luo Zixiao understood this as well. He walked forward with his sword in hand and gently stroked the true dragon's skeleton. Then, he said indifferently, it doesn't matter. Along the way, the spirit fruits, herbs, and rare ores I picked are enough. Just treat it as a pleasant surprise if there is dragon marrow. It is not a loss even if there is none. Murong Lingfeng held the segment of true dragon skeleton and shook it up and down. However, the bone was empty, there was no sound at all. He could not help but feel disappointed. If there was dragon marrow in it, when he shook it gently, the dragon marrow would flow. It would give off a resonant and vast true dragon roar, resounding throughout the world, extremely shocking. Clearly, there was nothing in this true dragon skeleton. However, this true dragon skeleton was already very valuable. Even if they split it evenly, they would not lose out. Be it exchanging it for resources, selling it for spirit stones, forging bone weapons, or refining medicinal pills, it would be very useful. On the other side, Wang Meng held the 9th vertebra of the true dragon skeleton as he looked at the white-robed Shao Qin. However, he did not make a move. Jiang Ziyuan, who was at the side, frowned slightly. He said unhappily, Wang Meng, are you afraid that I will try to snatch it if there is dragon marrow? Why are you not testing it yet? Wang Meng recovered his wits. However, he ignored Jiang Ziyuan's words. His gaze turned grave as he muttered, so, it is him. That white-robed brat who snatched my half-drop of dragon marrow. It looks like I have to negotiate with Shui Lingling later. When Jiang Ziyuan saw the situation, he could not help but repeat what he said. He did not mean anything else, he just wanted to see whether there was dragon marrow or not. If there was, he could use resources to exchange for it with Wang Meng. Physical defense had always been Shao Chen's weakness. He really needed the help of dragon marrow. Wang Meng laughed loudly and casually tossed the vertebra over. He said, in that case, do it yourself. Why would I, Wang Meng, be afraid of you playing any tricks? Jiang Ziyuan could not be bothered to say more. He caught the vertebra and shook it. It was empty, there was no sound at all. Shao Qin could not help but reveal an expression of extreme disappointment. He looked at the huge skeleton in the center, where Anjuanshi and the fiend race loose cultivators were still fighting. It looks like only that set of dragon bones will have dragon marrow, Jiang Ziyuan said calmly. Wang Meng's lips curled up slightly. He said, that might not be the case. However, even if there is, you would not be able to exchange for it. And Anjuanshi wants to use the entire vertebra to forge the true dragon lightning whip. Taking out the dragon marrow would destroy the integrity of the whip. Jiang Ziyuan sighed slightly and said, I know that as well. However, Anjuanshi is becoming increasingly stronger. He will probably comprehend the will of thunder soon. At that time, he will be able to face the three holy scions head-on. Wang Meng said sullenly, it is not that soon. He has already comprehended it. The problem now is how much of the will of thunder he has comprehended. When Jiang Ziyuan heard this news, his body paused visibly. He asked, "How do you know? Have you fought with him before?" Wang Meng's expression slowly turned grave. He nodded gently and said, "Do you think I am the kind of person who would give up the title of the strongest of the 7 giants so easily? I fought him once 3 years ago and lost within 100 moves. I fought him again 2 years ago and lost within 100 moves. I fought him again 1 year ago and lost within 10 moves." Defeating Wang Meng in 10 moves, Jiang Ziyuan could not help but reveal deep shock in his eyes. He said, "Their cultivation and martial techniques are about the same. There is only one explanation for losing so quickly." Wang Meng casually waved his hand and put away the entire set of true dragon remains. Then, he looked at the set of remains in the middle and said, "Just wait and see. In the next Sage War of the Proud Son of Heaven ranking, the top 3 positions will probably change." Before the anticipating gazes of his many junior brothers and sisters, Feng Xingxing gently shook the 9th segment of the true dragon bone. In the end, it was still empty, there was no sound at all. Aside from the one in the middle, 3 of the remaining 4 sets of true dragon bones did not have dragon marrow. The rarity of dragon marrow was evident once again. A true dragon cave would not be exposed at any time. Even if it was exposed, most of the dragon bones would not have dragon marrow. It was even possible for the entire true dragon cave to not have dragon marrow. "First senior sister, don't touch this segment first." Shui Lingling had already removed the 9th segment of the true dragon bone. However, Xiaoqin stopped Shui Lingling from doing so. The blue dragon martial spirit in Xiao Chen's body had recondensed. He had a strange connection to this true dragon bone. His spiritual sense and mental energy could not see through this true dragon bone. However, Xiaoqin had a hunch that this segment of the true dragon bone might contain dragon marrow. Once it was exposed, it would definitely attract attention from many places. At that time, there would be endless trouble. Shui Lingling was stunned for a while, but she still obeyed. Then, she handed the true dragon bone to Xiao Chen for safekeeping. As for the remaining true dragon bones, Shui Lingling divided them according to their individual strengths. Xiao Chen and Xiao Chen each took 40%, and the remaining 20% was divided equally among Hu Hai and the other 2. No one objected to such a division. Without Xiao Chen and Shui Lingling, it would be impossible for the others to obtain even 1 segment of the true dragon bone. Boom! Suddenly, an extremely resonant divine thunder resounded. That thunder imprinted itself in everyone's sea of consciousness, reverberating endlessly and causing their seas of consciousness to churn endlessly. There was clearly only one thunder, but it resounded endlessly in everyone's minds. It was like they were in a sea of lightning. Everyone felt like bolts of lightning were circling them. The sky changed color, and the winds and clouds churned. It felt like the heavenly might of the lightning could shatter their souls at any moment. Xiao Qin stabilized his mind. His surging mental energy instantly allowed him to extricate himself from the illusion. Chapter 726. After that, the other 7 giants woke up from the illusions one after another. When they looked at the owner of the shocking thunder, they all appeared somewhat dazed. Shui Lingling frowned slightly and muttered to herself, "Will of thunder." And Juanxi really comprehended the will of thunder. Xiaoqin frowned and entered deep thought. The might of a will was truly terrifying. It could even intimidate a cultivator's soul. If Juanxi really made a move, even if everyone here worked together, they would not be a match for him. He had already left the others far behind. If they could not comprehend a will as well, then even if they were half-sages, they would be like ants before him. And Juanxi's lightning whip flickered with a silver electric light. The whip looked like a dignified, silver holy dragon as it swept out. The whip knocked the 5 fiend race loose cultivators, who had revealed their true forms, into the air. Their fiend bodies trembled in the air. After they landed, they reverted to human form. Strands of black smoke came out of their bodies, making them look very miserable. "Why are you still not scramming?" And Juanshi shouted as he stood on the dragon's head. He had a stern expression as he held the silver lightning whip. After exposing the will of thunder, and Juanshi was not in a good mood. He did not show any politeness when he spoke. If these 5 fiend race loose cultivators dared to continue pestering him, he could only kill them. The 5 half-sage fiend race loose cultivators trembled as they climbed to their feet. Their eyes revealed deep fear as they headed out of the burial ground without looking back. When Juanshi landed on the ground, he casually swung his whip and shattered the huge true dragon skeleton, leaving only the 9 segments of its spine intact. As the skeleton shattered, the entire burial ground shook violently. Rocks continuously fell from above, rumbling as they fell. "Quick, let's go. This place is going to collapse. If we do not go out, we will be buried forever." Shui Lingling's expression changed slightly. Then, she led Xiao Chen and the others towards the exit. The cave collapsed, and huge rocks fell from the sky. The entire place turned chaotic. Fortunately, the cultivators who came here all had high cultivations. In such a crisis, other than some extremely unlucky cultivators who could not circulate their quintessence in time and got crushed by the rocks, most would be fine. After exiting the cave, the ground behind Xiao Chen and the others collapsed. Accompanied by a rumbling sound, the true dragon cave was completely covered in dust and turned into ruins. He could no longer continue searching, and it would be impossible for him to continue trying his luck here in the future. Several cultivators stood in front of the rubble, unwilling to leave for a long time. Some people obtained heavenly treasures and mystical resources that they wanted. It could be said that they had obtained their own fortuitous encounter. There were also people who paid with their lives here, turning into the earth, falling just like that, dying on the path of martial arts that was filled with difficulties. Shui Lingling sighed gently and said, "Let's go. The demonic barrier around the savage battlefield will recover after a while. At that time, it will be difficult to leave." The crowd slowly dispersed. At Xiao Chen's suggestion, Shui Lingling took an extremely desolate path. 1 hour later, after scanning the area with his spiritual sense several times and confirming that there was no one within 5 kilometers, Xiao Chen took out the dragon bone. Jun Si smiled gently and said, "Junior brother Xiao Chen, you are so cautious. Could it be that there is really dragon marrow in this dragon bone?" The others looked at Xiao Chen curiously as well. They did not understand why Xiao Chen was so insistent. After all, the chances of dragon marrow appearing were extremely low. This was especially so for a subordinate dragon, it was practically impossible. Previously, when Wang Meng and the others checked for dragon bones in front of so many people, they had not held much hope. If they were sure that there was dragon marrow, they would not have shown it to so many people, seeking trouble for themselves. Xiao Chen smiled faintly as he held the true dragon's 9th vertebra with his right hand. He said, "That is hard to say. Perhaps a miracle will happen." Drip. As Xiao Chen held the dragon bone, he shook it gently. The crisp sound of liquid sloshing came from the dragon bone. The 4, including Shui Lingling, all showed astonished expressions. They even suspected that they were hallucinating. Roar. Before they could question it, the crisp sound of liquid sloshing suddenly turned into a resonant dragon roar. That dragon roar contained a boundless dragon might. True dragons had long since disappeared, and the ones that still existed in the world were only some drakes. Even the draconic might of the most powerful draconic dragons was worlds apart from this. This was the purest true dragon might. The instant the dragon roar appeared, aside from Xiao Chen and Shui Lingling, the other 3 were immediately sent flying. Right after the dragon roar sounded, another dragon roar followed. This time, Hu Hai and the other 2 could no longer hold on. They all vomited a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground, trembling. Even Shui Lingling had a somewhat grave expression. She shuffled her feet slightly. After the dragon might dispersed, Shui Lingling walked over joyfully. She said, 2 dragon roars. There are 2 drops of dragon marrow in there. Xiao Chen, how did you discover it? The others walked over with pale complexions. Their eyes were still filled with disbelief. Hu Hai muttered, 2 drops of dragon marrow. If Wang Mang and the others knew about such a harvest, I wonder how jealous they would be. The value of 1 drop of dragon marrow was sufficient to offset all the precious spirit fruits and ores that those people had collected along the way. 2 drops of spirit stones completely surpassed the gains of the others. This was especially so for the genius cultivators who came here specifically for the dragon marrow. This was a fatal temptation. To them, if they could not obtain the dragon marrow, no matter how many treasures they collected, it would be useless. 5 kilometers away, Wang Meng's body paused for a moment. A strange look flashed in his eyes as he carefully sensed the faint fluctuations in the air. After a while, Wang Meng's eyes lit up. His lips curled up in a smile as he said, "It's dragon marrow." What a coincidence. After Wang Meng recognized Xiao Chen, he wanted to end his relationship with Xiao Chen. He did not want to lose half a drop of dragon marrow for nothing. However, when Wang Meng followed Xiao Chen, he quickly sensed a spiritual sense that was much stronger than mental energy. Wang Meng was very knowledgeable. The first possibility that came to his mind was that Shui Lingling had obtained a rather powerful mental energy martial technique. After Xiao Chen dodged once, he chose to follow far behind the group of people. Back to where Xiao Chen and the others were, Hu Hai and the others rejoiced at first. However, they quickly calmed down. No matter what, the 2 drops of dragon marrow would not end up in their hands. First senior sister, we will not split this dragon marrow. You and junior brother Xiao Chen can have a drop each, Hu Hai and the others said calmly. Shui Lingling nodded and said, all right. I will compensate you with some medial-grade spirit-gathering pearls later. However, I have no use for this drop of dragon marrow. Xiao Chen looked at Shui Lingling suspiciously. Since there were 2 drops of dragon marrow, he definitely had to give one away. He did not know why Shui Lingling did not want it. Dragon marrow mainly strengthens a cultivator's physical body's defense. 1 drop of dragon marrow can raise my defense by about 20%. Shui Lingling carried the purple bow on her back and stroked the hair on her forehead. She chuckled and said, however, I mainly cultivate archery and movement techniques. The dragon marrow is not very useful to me, so I might as well help you, junior martial brother. In the future, you have to take out a natural treasure of equal value to the dragon marrow and return it to me. Xiao Chen never liked to put on airs. The dragon marrow was indeed very useful to him. He performed a cup fist salute and said, many thanks, senior sister. Xiao Chen will remember this favor. Just as Shui Lingling was about to say something, she frowned slightly on her pretty face. She looked up and said, someone is coming. The group turned their heads and saw a dim light shooting through the air, looking like a beam of light rushing over. This person did not hide his strong aura at all. Before he even got close, a strong wind blew, kicking up sand and rocks. Xiao Chen and the others could not help but close their eyes. When the strong wind dissipated, the arrogant and tyrannical Wang Meng carrying the dragon-toothed saber on his back appeared before the group with a smile on his face. Shui Lingling, congratulations to your Haotian sect. You have gained another proud disciple. Wang Meng casually drew his dragon-toothed saber and placed both hands on its hilt as he stood upright on the ground. Of the 7 giants, Wang Meng had the most arrogant temper. He never hid it, so his relationships with others were poor. Shui Lingling could not be bothered to speak nonsense with him. She removed the purple bow with her right hand and said coldly, you are here for the dragon marrow, right? I really do not know where you get your confidence to appear before me in such an open space. Wang Meng, who had fought alongside Shui Lingling in the Bushan Palace, knew better than others how mighty the bow in Shui Lingling's hand was. Many cultivators of the foreign races and demonic world experts had died to this bow. Wang Meng looked at Xiao Chen with some fear and smiled faintly. Then, he pointed at Xiao Chen and said, I am here to look for him, not to cause trouble for you. You should know that he won half a drop of dragon marrow from me, right? Xiao Chen smiled bitterly to himself. He knew that half a drop of dragon marrow would not be that easy to obtain. Trouble finally came looking for him. Shui Lingling narrowed her eyes and said coldly, you can't look for him either. As for the matter of the half a drop of dragon marrow, if you want to look for it, go look for Nguyen Muyan. What is so great about looking for my junior brother? Wang Meng had not expected Shui Lingling to be so unyielding. His gaze turned cold, and he released an indistinct killing chi. He said, no matter what you think, we have to settle this grudge. Otherwise, I will not be able to calm down. Bai Wuxue gave him 1 year. I will not bully the weak. As long as he can receive one move from me, this matter will be settled. If he does not want to receive it, that is fine. In that case, give me 1 drop of dragon marrow to end this matter. Otherwise. Shui Lingling did not show any fear. Her gentle and pretty face was covered in frost, and her killing chi had not been released yet. She asked indifferently, otherwise what? Wang Meng smiled coldly and said, otherwise, he might not be able to live past 1 year, unless he stays in the Haotian sect and does not come out. Good. In that case, I will kill you now. Earlier, when Bai Wuxue threatened Shui Lingling in the cave, she had already been suppressing her anger. Now that she was in such an open area, she was in danger from Wang Meng. Shui Lingling could no longer hold back her rage. She did not say anything more and unleashed all her killing chi. Her purple robes fluttered, and her fine black hair fluttered in the wind. Then, she suddenly released the bowstring in her right hand. A fiery light flickered like a meteor, illuminating the dark space of the savage battlefield. In the blink of an eye, it arrived before Wang Meng. The fiery light illuminated the sky. The light disappeared in a flash, and the dark space returned to normal. Chapter 727. No one could describe how fast that arrow was. If it wasn't for the shock brought by the strong light to the eyes, it was very likely that they would think that it was just an illusion. Although Wang Meng's gaze wandered, it never left Shui Lingling's right hand, which was drawing the bowstring. Before Shui Lingling let go, Wang Meng had already dodged. The instant the light vanished, Wang Meng had already retreated 100 meters. A finger-sized hole appeared where he originally stood. It was dark and deep, and no one knew how deep it was. The entire place was calm, except for the sound of the wind. The air froze and lingered for a long time, looking very strange. Hu Hai and the other 2 knew Shui Lingling's strength. The instant she released the arrow, they immediately retreated. Xiao Chen followed suit, following his instincts. Bang! Indeed, everything that happened earlier was just the calm before the storm. The profound yang arrow, which had penetrated an unknown distance into the ground, suddenly exploded. The flat ground suddenly cracked, and the crack extended for a kilometer. Countless pieces of mud splattered in all directions like fairies scattering their wings. Rumble. The ground trembled, and mud poured down like a torrential rain. When one looked up, they saw many huge pieces of mud the size of small hills. Supported by the shock waves, the mud floated up into the sky. The scene was very chaotic, spectacular, and shocking. First Senior Sister is really angry. In the cave, First Senior Sister could not bring out her strength at all. Now that she is in such an open space, she has nothing to worry about. Hu Hai and the other 2 were flabbergasted. They had not seen Shui Lingling this angry in a long time. Whoosh! 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 Mud and rocks flew everywhere. Wang Meng held his dragon-tooth saber in the chaotic sky as he calmly leaped from one huge rock to another, approaching Shui Lingling. Her fine black hair fluttered like a waterfall. Shui Lingling's gentle face turned cold. Her purple robes fluttered, and killing chi radiated from her body. Xiao Chen drew back the bowstring and let go. 3 beams of fire each flew out in arcs. Her movements were as smooth as flowing water, direct and efficient, without any pause. Bang! The 3 streams of flames shattered a huge rock under Wang Meng's feet. The flowing light turned into a blazing flame that swept out. Wang Meng's body swayed in the air like a kite. Shui Lingling pushed off the ground with her toes and her graceful figure quickly jumped up from the ground. She pulled the bowstring and a stream of fire shot out. The red light shone in the dusky space, like fireworks blooming, the light never extinguishing, never extinguishing. Amidst the boundless flames, Wang Meng's agile body could be seen weaving through the arrows, trying to get closer to Shui Lingling. However, the terrain here was wide and flat, stretching out endlessly. Her fine black hair fluttered in the wind. That graceful purple figure was like a fairy, nimbly leaping about. She did not give Wang Meng any chance to get close at all. Instead, she forced Wang Meng to deal with her. The direction in which Shui Lingling shot her arrows was very particular. Her figure jumped and formed a huge circle. In the end, the radius of the circle continued to shrink, and the space that Wang Meng could dodge to was getting smaller and smaller. The situation did not look good for Wang Meng. Although the arrows did not hit Wang Meng, the shockwaves from the explosion of the flowing light drained his protective quintessence. The arrows were like light, flickering and disappearing. They were extremely fast, making everyone tense up at all times. They did not dare to relax at all, putting immense mental pressure on them. Damn it! To think that I'm fighting with Shui Lingling on a plane. It looks like I really went crazy. Wang Meng could not help cursing in a low voice when he dodged an arrow. However, the shockwaves sent him flying. After thinking for a while, Wang Meng gave up on his original plan. He charged out of Shui Lingling's formless encirclement and flew back. After thinking for a while, Xiaoqin gave up on his original plan. He charged out of Shui Lingling's formless encirclement and flew back. Shui Lingling held up her bow and gave chase. As the flowing light shot out, a 1,000-meter-long pit occasionally appeared on the flat ground, flabbergasting everyone. The 2 of them disappeared from Hu Hai's and the other's sight for a long time. However, they could still occasionally hear loud explosions coming from the distance. Xiaoqin looked into the distance for a long time before withdrawing his gaze. He said, "There is no need to chase so far, right?" A smile flashed on Jun Xi's face. She said softly, "First senior sister, this is to help you deal with this problem. Wang Meng has always been insolent. He is the kind of person who will vent his anger. If you only chase him away, he will come and seek trouble for you sooner or later. You have to make him back off." Hu Hai said, "Let's go as well." The direction that Wang Meng fled in is also the exit of the savage battlefield. The group followed the battle marks that Shui Lingling left behind and quickly gave chase. Who would have imagined that they would walk for 3 days and 3 nights? Explosions and flares occasionally rang out in front. After chasing for 3 days, Shui Lingling still did not give up. Wang Meng was in a miserable state as well. There were many cultivators outside the exit of the savage battlefield. These people did not have the strength to enter on their own, but their fellow sect members or friends did. Hence, they waited here for news, hoping that the people they knew would return safely. Move aside. Move aside. On this particular day, a loud sound suddenly came from the exit. A man in tattered clothes and covered in dirt, looking like a beggar, rushed out in a hurry while holding a dragon-tooth saber. Holding a dragon-tooth saber, he rushed out from inside and shouted at the people blocking his way. A strong aura spread out from his body, forcing everyone to move aside. Who is this person? He is so strong, but why is he in such a sorry state? That person's hair was charred black, and his face was covered in dirt. His appearance could not be seen clearly, which confused the others. Only when someone recognized the signature dragon-tooth saber did they exclaim in shock, "That is Wang Meng, the most arrogant of the 7 giants. Who is so powerful to be able to force him into such a state?" It was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's gazes were immediately drawn over. Wang Meng's clothes were tattered, his hair was charred, his face was covered in dirt, and his body was covered in wounds. His eyes were bloodshot, and he looked dispirited. He looked like a refugee. Whoosh! 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 Just as everyone was shocked, 9 resplendent meteor-like fiery lights shot out from the entrance. Each strand of fiery light was an arrow made of profound yang true flame. They were so dazzling that no one dared to look at them directly. Wang Meng, who was running forward, sensed the 9 swift fiery lights behind him. His eyes were filled with an extremely impatient expression. He seemed to be quite resentful, but there was nothing he could do. Wang Meng grasped the dragon-tooth saber tightly and quickly turned around. Saber lights danced, and the dragon-tooth saber seemed to come to life as he swung it 9 times. Every time Wang Meng swung the saber, the arrow would explode. The huge impact blasted a horrifying deep pit in the ground. Shock waves surged and kicked up a lot of dust. After 9 loud explosions, the place where Wang Meng stood was already covered in dust. Thick smoke and dust filled the air. A series of coughs could be clearly heard coming from inside. Shui Lingling, you are really ruthless. You chased me for 3 days and 3 nights. I have had enough. As for the matter of the half-drop of dragon marrow, I will not seek trouble for that brat anymore. Can you stop now? Wang Meng roared with all his might amidst the surging dust cloud. Shui Lingling floated down from the air, holding her purple bow. A gentle expression appeared on her frosty face. She smiled gently and said, "Wouldn't it have been fine if you had said so earlier? Why did you have to seek trouble for yourself?" When the dust cloud settled, Wang Meng looked at Shui Lingling, who was still in high spirits. She looked like she had no problem chasing him for 3 days and 3 nights. Wang Meng glared hatefully at Xiao Chen and quickly left. This time, he had shown weakness in front of so many people. He had completely lost face. So, he was targeted by Shui Lingling in the plains. Wang Meng deserves to be unlucky. After Shui Lingling pulled away, even An Juanxi, one of the 7 giants, would have a hard time dealing with him. After Shui Lingling appeared, the others finally understood. They felt that Wang Meng's encounter was reasonable and there was nothing to be surprised about. After another 4 hours, Xiao Chen's group of 4 arrived with fatigued expressions. When they saw Shui Lingling's figure, they heaved a sigh of relief. For the past 3 days, they had chased relentlessly without any rest. They were indeed very tired. If even they were in such a state, it was easy to imagine how Wang Meng, who was constantly in danger, had endured the past 3 days. Wang Meng's matter allowed Xiao Chen to see another side of Shui Lingling. He could not help but sigh ruefully. Sometimes, when a woman became ruthless, no matter how arrogant or domineering you were, you would have to lower your head and show weakness. Honestly speaking, Xiao Chen did not feel that there was anything wrong with Wang Meng's suggestion. Ending all grudges with one saber strike was something he could accept. Only after Shui Lingling explained did Xiao Chen understand. Of the 7 giants, Wang Meng's explosive power in close combat was the most horrifying. Xiao Chen was not like Bai Wuxue, whose state of ice paid particular attention to the aftermath, using cold qi to kill without anyone realizing it. Xiao Chen's horrifying explosive power could take someone's life in one move. This matter was just an interlude. It did not disrupt the group's journey. The group of people on the profound sun bird continued on their way back to the Haoyan sect. Since there was nothing to do along the way, Shui Lingling and the others could not help but ask about what happened after Xiao Chen was swept away by the true dragon storm. How did his strength improve so rapidly in just half a month? Naturally, Xiao Chen could not speak of the matter of the Blue Dragon Palace. He hid it, only saying that he found a peak-grade earth essence fruit and refined his quintessence twice. Right, that makes sense. In history, the cultivators who succeeded in refining their quintessence twice would usually erupt with horrifying combat prowess above their cultivation. After Shui Lingling heard everything, she analyzed seriously. Furthermore, with your physical body's strength and your accumulations, you can shock the world with one brilliant feat. Out of curiosity, Jun Si asked, first senior sister, according to what you said, Xiao Chen will be able to defeat Bai Wuxue easily in 1 year. Shui Lingling pondered this. Then, she shook her head slightly and said, it is hard to say. For a cultivator's life, 1 year is too short. However, this is a special era. Too many things can happen in 1 year. Hu Hai and the others exchanged glances. Then, they asked doubtfully, what special era? The Age of Geniuses? Shui Lingling nodded and said, that's right. The next year will be the most crucial year. You spend most of your time in the Haotian sect and do not have enough contacts. This is the information I obtained from Bushin Palace. Chapter 728. Be it the geniuses from the lower realms or the young experts of the Tianwu domain, there are several people who are even more talented than Xiao Chen. However, they lack accumulations, so they did not come to the savage battlefield. A strange look flashed in the eyes of Hu Hai and the other two. They found this somewhat incredible. It would be hard to find 10 heaven-defying people like Xiao Chen in the Tianwu domain in 100 years. However, Shui Lingling said that there were several geniuses who were even stronger than Xiao Chen. This was too shocking. Shui Lingling continued, there is an insurmountable bottleneck between half-sage and martial sage. Relying on treasures like spirit-gathering pearls will not have any effect. One can only rely on one's own comprehension and experience. Within 1 year, if the so-called 7 giants of the Tianwu domain do not improve, at least half of them will be defeated by the newcomers. Xiao Chen entered deep thought. Shui Lingling's words might be a little exaggerated, but they should be true. The savage battlefield was just the start of a great era. After this, there would be an endless stream of newcomers. Half a month later, the Haotian city appeared in the distance. After a long time, Xiao Chen saw the familiar city walls and people again. This made him feel like he had returned home. He did not need to think about anything and could rest properly. Before everyone went their separate ways, Shui Lingling asked Xiao Chen to stay behind. She said, Junior brother Xiao Chen, do you have any plans for the future? If you are willing, I can make you a true inheritor. True inheritor was a status that many people in the Haotian sect dreamed of. Once one became one, not only would one be able to practice the heaven-ranked cultivation techniques of the Haotian sect, but they would also obtain all sorts of resources and more freedom. If one's strength was outstanding, the sect would even send them to the Bushin Palace to interact with the elites of the entire Tianwu domain. They would compete with the cultivators of the other races and experience the even more majestic Kunlun Great World. Shui Lingling continued, as long as you are willing, I can immediately bring you to the central province's Bushin Palace. That is the center of the Tianwu domain, where all the elites of the human race gather. While you are there, your strength will increase even faster. 1 year later, your chances of defeating Bai Wuxue will be even greater. There were many benefits to becoming a true inheritor. One could imagine the benefits one would receive if they entered the Bushin Palace. However, everything had a price. Once he accepted it, he would definitely have to bear some responsibilities or obligations. Xiao Chen was a free person and didn't like to be restricted. Moreover, he had promised Ao Jiao that he would go to a place. There was a conflict of time between the two, and there was no way to reconcile. He could only decline Shui Lingling's invitation. Shui Lingling smiled warmly and said, all right, I won't force you. If you need anything, you can come to me at any time. I'll be in the Haotian sect for the next month. Farewell. Xiao Chen cupped his hands and left. As Shui Lingling watched Xiao Chen leave, she revealed a contemplative expression on her gentle and pretty face. She muttered, perhaps only the sect master can convince him. When Xiao Chen returned to his courtyard, he did not do anything. First, he took a hot bath, completely relaxing his body and mind, which had been tense for the past few days. Then, he made a table full of dishes and had a good meal. After everything was done, he went back to his room. After everything was done, Xiaochen slowly organized the treasures that he had not used in time. Naturally, the first was the dragon mark fruit, which could increase one's vital qi by 150 tons of force. However, Xiaochen had some doubts about the medicinal energy of this dragon mark fruit. Right now, his physical body was already a rank 1 sage body. Whether it could increase 150 tons of force of vital qi was still a big question mark. Xiaochen estimated that he could increase his vital qi by 50 tons of force at most, and that would already be pretty good. Naturally, the second item was the dragon bones containing the 2 drops of dragon marrow. Dragon marrow was good stuff. After Xiaochen consumed half a drop of dragon marrow, he could clearly feel the changes in his bones. During the battle, Xiaochen had experienced it firsthand. Bai Wushue's cold poison had not seeped into his internal organs. This had a lot to do with the dragon bones that had been modified by the dragon marrow. The 2 drops of dragon marrow could strengthen Xiaochen's bones further improving his defense. It might even undergo a complete transformation. The third item was the dragon tone art, a soundwave-type martial technique that countered the deity race's mental energy martial techniques. In the future, when Xiaochen left the Tianwu domain, he would definitely be able to use it. As for the last item, it was that mysterious painting of the Qing Emperor. This item was too strange. Even until now, Xiaochen did not have the courage to open it again. That incomparably realistic feeling of death was not a good feeling. However, the exquisite drawing the saber of the person in the painting had an incredible allure. One could not help but want to take a look. This was simply too contradictory. Aside from this, there was a large pile of true dragon bones in the ring. However, those things could only be used to exchange for resources. Xiaochen had no use for them. The 4 treasures were placed before Xiaochen. He had indeed gained a lot from this trip to the savage battlefield. Not only had his strength soared, surpassing his expectations, but his gains were also gratifying. Fortuitous encounters. No wonder the cultivators of the world loved fortuitous encounters so much. Even at the risk of death, they still rushed forward. Xiaochen held the dragon mark fruit in his hand and thought for a while. In the end, he gave up on consuming it. The foundation of his physical body was too strong. He would not be able to bring out the full medicinal energy of the dragon mark fruit. He might as well keep it and give it to Yu Chenxi when the time came. Yu Chenxi specialized in fist techniques. Her vital qi could increase by 150 tons of force. This would definitely be of great help to her close combat. Xiaochen took out 2 jade bottles and broke open the true dragon bones. 2 drops of golden dragon marrow containing pure dragon might fell into the jade bottles. Xiaochen smiled faintly and swallowed the 2 drops of dragon marrow, which others coveted. Then, he sat down cross-legged and quietly waited for the dragon marrow to take effect. When Xiaochen looked within himself, he discovered that his entire skeleton was covered in a layer of dazzling golden light. That was the dragon marrow slowly seeping into his bones. The previous half-drop of dragon marrow did not have such a mysterious phenomenon. It was probably too diluted. The amount of dragon marrow that had seeped into every bone was too little. Ka-xie. As the dragon marrow slowly seeped into Xiaochen, every bone in his body gave off soft sounds. Every bone seemed to be changing from the inside out. When all of the dragon marrow had seeped into the bones, the golden light on the bones finally disappeared. When Xiaochen looked carefully, he discovered that the color of his bones had changed. They now glowed with a faint golden light. The golden light was very faint. However, it gave his fragile bones a texture. With one look, he could tell that they had become much sturdier. Xiaochen sensed that there seemed to be something more in his entire skeleton. He carefully sensed for a long time and finally discovered that his entire skeleton was connected. There was an indistinct barrier of light, forming an internal layer of defense in his body. After withdrawing his consciousness, Xiaochen's face lit up with joy. He muttered to himself, it looks like when I consumed the half-drop of dragon marrow, it already formed an internal layer of defense. This is the secret to blocking Bai Wushue's cold poison. However, the effect of the half-drop of dragon marrow was too little. It could not form a visible barrier of light. Xiaochen only had such an effect after consuming another 2 drops of dragon marrow. If he ran into Bai Wushue again in the future, the other party's cold poison, which gave him a headache, might be completely ineffective against him. Furthermore, with an additional internal layer of defense, Xiaochen's overall defense was much stronger than before. As Xiaochen held the dragon bones with the dragon marrow removed, he thought to himself, the barrier of light is still too faint. This internal layer of defense still has a lot of potential. Just as Xiaochen was experiencing the benefits of consuming the 2 drops of dragon marrow, a group of uninvited guests came to his courtyard with hostile gazes when they heard that he had returned. This group was led by Hua Tianhe, the true inheritors of the other sect. Xiaochen put away the dragon tone art. For now, he did not intend to learn this martial technique. He did not have the time to do so. Looking at the painting of the Qing Emperor drawing the saber, Xiaochen hesitated for a long time. In the end, he decided to unfurl the painting. The drawing of the saber of the person in the painting was simply too tempting. It was clearly just a casual posture. However, Xiaochen could see several directions from which the saber could be drawn. There were even some that he did not know of. Such a drawing the saber gave Xiaochen a significant impact. If he could learn it, his saber techniques would definitely improve. Suddenly, Xiaochen frowned and casually placed the painting of the Qing Emperor drawing the saber into his universe ring. Xiaochen looked out of the courtyard and muttered to himself for a while. Then, his figure flashed and he quickly drifted out. Standing on the blue dragon image, Xiaochen arrived outside the courtyard. Then, he expressionlessly sized up Hua Tianhe, Yun Feiyu, and the others. The eyes of the other 5 contained a murderous intent. Their expressions were cold, and they placed their right hands on their swords. Clearly, they did not come with good intentions. Xiaochen looked up and said calmly, "Senior brothers, I wonder what brings you to this small courtyard." Hua Tianhe and the others sized up Xiaochen. Shock immediately appeared in their eyes. In a short 2 months, Xiaochen's strength had become somewhat unfathomable. However, in the end, Xiaochen was only a peak medial grade martial monarch. Hua Tianhe felt slightly more at ease. He was a late-stage superior grade martial monarch. Of the other 4, the weakest was a middle-stage superior grade martial monarch. In terms of numbers and cultivation, they could completely suppress Xiaochen. Thinking of this, Hua Tianhe's face sank. He could not be bothered to speak any nonsense. He said in a cold voice, "Xiaochen, let me ask you, were you the one who sneak attacked us in the savage beast forest that day?" Xiaochen's expression did not change. He smiled faintly and said, "If you do not have any evidence, I hope senior brother Hua will not speak nonsense." A blue-robed swordsman behind Hua Tianhe stepped forward and pointed at Xiaochen. He said, "Do you want evidence? After the incident, Wang Qing personally told us that you were not with them. Instead, you were sneakily hiding. You are the most suspicious." Xiaochen had not expected Wang Qing to do such a thing. This somewhat surprised him. However, that was then and this was now. Whether there was evidence or suspicion was no longer important. Xiaochen did not deny it. He said, "Just say what you want to say. There is no need to beat around the bush." Hua Tianhe smiled and said, "Since you already admit to it, I will be straightforward. You caused us to lose the right to go to the savage battlefield. You have to bear the responsibility for this loss." "That's right. You have to bear the responsibility. Hand over all the treasures you obtained from the savage battlefield and give each of us 1 million superior grade spirit stones. Otherwise, we will not have a good time in the Haotian sect," a person behind Hua Tianhe shouted sternly. The matter of Xiaochen exchanging 100 moves with Bai Wushue and remaining undefeated had not spread yet. Hence, these people all believed that they already had Xiaochen in the bag. Hence, their words were not polite at all and were overbearing. Chapter 729. I finally revealed my foxtail. Xiaoqin smiled coldly to himself. He said indifferently, "Sorry, I will use what I can use for myself. If I cannot use it, I will give it to my friends. I will not give it to a bunch of trash." The five had expected that Xiaoqin would not give in obediently. One of the people behind Xiaoqin smiled coldly and said, "Haha. Since you call us trash, then junior brother Xiaoqin must be very capable. I, Liancheng, am here to seek some advice." Xiao. Liancheng drew his sword light and soared into the air. A white mist appeared on his sword, giving off a cold qi. Unexpectedly, Liancheng's state was the same as by Wushue's. A cold wind blew, and the temperature plummeted. Frost immediately covered the ground, spreading up from under Xiaoqian's feet. Liancheng was very confident in his state of ice. Not only could it reduce his opponent's speed, but it could also reduce his opponent's speed. Not only could it reduce the opponent's speed, but it could also formlessly infiltrate the opponent's body and form a cold poison, killing the opponent without them realizing it. When the sword light arrived, Xiaoqin circulated his vital qi and gently pushed out with his hand. A surging force struck the tip of the sword. Wang! Wang! The 1-meter-long sword started to tremble, and the force flowed along the blade and into Liancheng's right hand. The vast force pulled Liancheng back, nearly causing him to lose his grip on the sword. Liancheng was shocked. He could not understand why his state of ice did not have any effect on Xiaoqin. Furthermore, since when did Xiaoqian's strength become so great? With a gentle push, Xiaoqin easily broke Liancheng's flying sword strike. The scene immediately caused Hua Tianhe and the others to stare with their eyes wide open and their mouths agape. However, what shocked them even more was yet to come. Xiaoqin grasped this opportunity and unleashed his state of thunder. Electricity instantly tore apart the frost on the ground. Bang! Xiaoqin took a step forward, and a blue dragon image appeared under his feet, carrying him into the air. Vital qi surged in Xiaoqian's body like a raging river, surging endlessly. His qi and blood surged, and his aura looked like a rainbow piercing through the sun. His white robes fluttered in the wind, his long hair dancing in the wind. Xiaoqin was like an ancient god of war, stepping on a blue dragon. Liancheng, who hadn't even had time to turn around, had a trace of fear in his eyes when he saw Xiaoqin flying towards him. He hurriedly retreated. "Do you think you can escape?" Xiaoqin reacted quickly. He moved at lightning speed and grabbed Liancheng's wrist in an instant. 1,000 tons of vital qi surged and roared in his body, giving off a rumbling sound like that of a stormy sea. Looking at his body, one could feel a clump of raging flames burning. That was the invisible pressure produced when one's physical body was powerful and their qi and blood were vigorous to the extreme. Liancheng felt as if his wrist was being clamped down by a pair of iron pincers. His face turned red, and no matter how much Xin Yuan he used, he was unable to break free. Xiaoqin casually pulled and then quickly let go. Liancheng was thrown high up into the air like a sandbag, falling towards the lake behind him. "You are indeed not talented. You can't even be considered trash," Xiaoqin said calmly as he watched Liancheng fly away and land on the ground. Unexpectedly, Xiaoqin flung Liancheng into the air. Hua Tianhe and the other four felt a chill run down their backs. They were in disbelief. How was this the strength of a peak medial-grade martial monarch? "The few of you, if you think you are not trash, then come with me," Xiaoqin said casually. Then he soared into the air and summoned out 3 blue dragons. Xiaoqian's figure flickered, and the berserk dragons danced around. In an instant, he caught up to Liancheng in the air. Xiaoqin casually raised his foot and stomped on Liancheng's ribs, sending him flying like a cannonball into the lake, creating a large splash. The entire process was very simple. A middle-stage superior-grade martial monarch was toyed with by Xiaoqin, unable to resist at all. Hua Tianhe and the others were both shocked and enraged. Xiao Chen's casual words trampled on their dignity so badly that they could not bear to look at them. As true inheritors, they were respected everywhere they went in the Haotian sect, worshipping them. However, today, Xiao Chen did not care at all, directly saying that they were just a bunch of trash. The most important thing was that the contrast was too great. Originally, the few of them had intended to consider Xiao Chen's improvement. Given their strength, if they worked together, it would be easy to subdue Xiao Chen. However, the development of the situation exceeded their expectations. In just one exchange, Xiao Chen used the most tyrannical method to toss Lian Qing out. Hua Tianhe quickly analyzed the situation. Then, he said calmly, he probably consumed some natural treasure to strengthen his physical body in the savage battlefield. Even if we do not get close to him, we will still be able to defeat him if we fight him with quintessence. That's right. This fellow is too arrogant. If we cannot suppress his arrogance this time and he becomes a true inheritor in the future, we will not be able to survive in the Haotian sect. Let's work together and trample on him. The other three also revealed ferocious gazes as they agreed with Hua Tianhe. Xiao Chen's rise terrified them from the bottom of their hearts. No matter what, they had to trample on him. Xiao! 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 Four beams of light shot out and landed on the water, surrounding Xiao Chen. They feared Xiao Chen's horrifying physical body, so they did not dare to get too close. Xiao Chen glanced at them and figured out their intentions. He drew out his lunar shadow saber and calmly placed his right hand on its hilt. There was no wind or waves on the calm surface of the lake. Under the strong auras of the five, the flowing water seemed to have stopped, not moving at all. Hua Tianhe's group of four placed their hands on the hilts of their swords as they looked coldly at Xiao Chen. A heavy murderous intent appeared in the depths of their eyes. Ka! Ka! The four swords were drawn at the same time. Surging sword chi kicked up waves as they flew at Xiao Chen. Each strand of sword chi contained a different state. Some were like strong winds, some were like surging flames, some were as heavy as earth, and some were as sharp as metal. The state of wind, the state of fire, the state of earth, and the state of metal supported the sword chi of the four states. From a distance, it looked very majestic amid the splashes of water. Towering waves and layers of water appeared. Under such a scene, the white-robed Xiao Chen looked as insignificant as an ant. Xiao Chen did not show any fear. He quickly drew his saber with his right hand, and the immortal state of thunder surged out. Thunderclouds filled the sky above, and electric light shot out from the saber. Bang! 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 Xiao Chen's figure moved as he swung his saber 4 times, shattering the 4 strands of sword chi. Quintessence surged out, and a huge pillar of water shot up into the sky from the lake. Hua Tianyu's group of 4 made up their minds not to get close to Xiao Chen. Their nimble figures leaped quickly on the water, sending strands of sword chi at Xiao Chen. They wanted to use their advantage in cultivation to exhaust Xiao Chen to death. When Xiao Chen ran out of quintessence, they would be able to do whatever they wanted to him. Xiao Chen understood. He had already condensed his quintessence twice. In terms of quintessence, he had no less than any of them. If they really wanted to fight like this, Xiao Chen would be happy to do so. By the time he ran out of quintessence, he would be able to use the strength of his physical body to crush this group of people. Electric light surged on the calm lake, a strong wind howled, and flames surged. All sorts of quintessence shot out from the surface of the lake. They kicked up huge waves and boundless ripples. The entire lake turned chaotic. Such fluctuations immediately startled the inner sect disciples living nearby. When they saw the faces of the two sides fighting, they were all startled. What's going on? Unexpectedly, Xiao Chen is fighting with Hua Tianhe's group. He is fighting 1 against 4, and he is not at a disadvantage. Since when did Xiao Chen become so strong? More cultivators gathered at the lakeside to watch. Intense shock filled their eyes. The difference in status between the two sides was simply too great. Xiaochen was just an inner sect disciple who had just joined the sect half a year ago. On the other side, there was a strong true inheritor with a noble status. Although Yunfeiyu had not officially become a true inheritor, his strength was already recognized to be on the same level as a true inheritor. For true inheritors had to fight so bitterly against one inner sect disciple. Such a situation had never happened before in the history of the Haotian sect. Boundless sword qi shot at Xiaochen like cannonballs. Xiaochen did not panic, only brandishing the saber in his hand. He broke the various sword qi coming at him one by one. Then, he kept his quintessence and did not react. He only calmly watched the 4 people who wanted to knock him down immediately. Hua Tianhe and the other 3 gradually felt that something was wrong. Almost 1 hour had passed, but Xiaochen did not have any quintessence left. Senior brother Hua, this brat is strange. I have already exhausted 2/3 of my quintessence, but he still looks fine. I have exhausted more than half of my quintessence as well. If this continues, I will be completely out of combat prowess. The 4 sent voice projections to Hua Tianhe one after another. Some fluster appeared in their hearts, they could not figure out Xiaochen at all. Hua Tianhe said sullenly, never mind. Let's cut off all means of retreat and use our heaven-ranked martial techniques together. I don't believe that we cannot destroy him. The combined attacks of 4 heaven-ranked martial techniques were so mighty that even a half-sage would not dare to underestimate them. If a weaker half-sage got struck, they would immediately be severely injured. Xiaochen looked around the 4's faces and guessed what they were thinking. It is time to end this. These people are much weaker than Shimen Bao. Now that I have consumed 2 more drops of dragon marrow, they are no longer on the same level as me. After making up his mind, Xiaochen looked around and fixed his gaze on Yunfeiyu, the former top inner sect disciple. The blue dragon swung its tail, and a strong wind blew, creating an arc. Xiaochen stood on the blue dragon and instantly arrived before Yunfeiyu. Yunfeiyu's face sank. Before he could react, Xiaochen's attack arrived. Ghostly image chop. Saber lights danced around, sending out 72 saber images. The real and fake were hard to distinguish, looking like phantoms. Each saber image contained the immortal state of thunder and Xiaochen's great perfection saber intent. Its might was unfathomable. Dang! 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 The saber and sword clashed, creating intense sparks. Yunfeiyu blocked 72 saber strikes. With each strike, he was pushed back 100 meters. By the time the others reacted, Xiaochen had already pushed Yunfeiyu back more than 7 kilometers. Chase! We cannot let him defeat us one by one. Hua Tianhe's expression changed drastically as he quickly led the remaining 2 people in pursuit. However, the group only advanced 1 kilometer before they heard a miserable shriek. A boundless sea of lightning blasted Yunfeiyu, inflicting internal injuries. He vomited a mouthful of blood and sank to the bottom of the lake. A boundless sea of lightning appeared in front of them. With a glance, all they saw was electric light. Xiaochen's figure was nowhere to be seen. Chapter 730. Hua Tianhe was the first to feel that something was wrong. He felt like a venomous snake was staring at him. He did not know where his opponent was hiding. Retreat! Quickly retreat! The group rushed over. However, when they were less than a kilometer away, they immediately retreated. This baffled the many disciples at the lakeshore. However, they soon realized why Hua Tianhe and his 2 lackeys had decided to retreat. A strand of saber light appeared from somewhere in the boundless sea of lightning. It was untraceable and swept through the area. Pu Ci. As the saber light flashed, finger-sized bloody holes appeared in the chests of Hua Tianhe's group. Blood spurted out like a fountain. The wounds were less than 2 centimeters away from their hearts. If Xiaochen had not shown mercy, the 3 would have died on the spot. Hua Tianhe paled as he looked at the white figure in front in disbelief. His group really lost to an inner sect disciple who was only a peak medial grade martial monarch. Xiaoqin slowly turned around and looked coldly at the three, who were doing their best to cover their wounds. There was no trace of sympathy in his eyes. Then, Xiaoqin sheathed his saber and stepped forward, letting the sword qi that the three sent fly at him. Xiaoqin stomped 3 times with boundless force, sending the three flying like cannonballs into the bottom of the lake. The 3 strands of sword qi struck Xiaoqian's protective quintessence, and the remnant energy entered his body. First, his skin and flesh blocked half of the sword qi. Then, the light barrier on his bones blocked the remaining half. Most of the sword qi had already entered his internal organs. It did not cause much damage to Xiaoqian. Xiaoqian's internal organs churned slightly, and he was fine. When Xiaoqian looked around, he saw that the raging lake had already calmed down. He could no longer see any opponents. Hua Tianhe's group of 5 only dared to poke their heads out of the lake. They looked at Xiaoqian in horror, not even daring to fly out. When did Xiaoqian become so strong? Looking at the situation, apart from Shui Lingling, perhaps only those true disciples who went to Bushin Palace can suppress him. I really can't believe it. For true inheritors, in addition to Yun Feiyu, are not a match for Xiaoqian even after working together. And looking at Xiaoqian's situation, it's obvious that he didn't give it his all. The battle had ended so cleanly, leaving the inner disciples at the shore in disbelief. The discussions entered Xiaoqian's ears. However, he did not feel that there was anything to be complacent about. If it were any of the 7 giants here, they would not be satisfied. Both of them were able to face the 5 of them more easily than him. The difference in strength between the 2 of them was already on a completely different level. Moreover, from the very beginning, Xiaoqian's goal had never been to become a true disciple of the Haoyan sect. How vast was this world? When one looked around, there were countless geniuses and heroes. How could one narrow one's sights and be complacent? Xiaoqian glanced coldly at the heads popping out of the lake. This frightened Hua Tianhe and the others into quickly diving back down, not even daring to show their heads. Xiaoqian withdrew his gaze and ignored these arrogant trash. Then, he returned to the courtyard. High in the sky above the lake, Shui Lingling stood on a cloud. She smiled at the sky and said, "Master, you saw it clearly now, right? Lingling, I did not lie to you, right?" In the faint blue sky, the image of a pair of eyes slowly appeared behind Shui Lingling. This image was very large. The sky behind Shui Lingling was covered by this pair of eyes. Under the gaze of this pair of eyes, it seemed that no secret in the world could be hidden from them. The owner of the eyes said, "He is indeed a person with great luck. Unfortunately, this person cannot be used by the Haoyan sect." Shui Lingling's gentle expression changed slightly. She said, "Why can't Xiaoqian be used by the Haoyan sect? I can tell that he likes freedom. However, Master, you are a greater celestial Emperor Wu. If you speak to him personally, you will definitely be able to move him." It turned out that the owner of this pair of eyes was the sect master of the Haoyan sect, the Haoyan Emperor. 1,000 years ago, he successfully advanced from a lesser celestial to a greater celestial, Emperor Wu. He led the Haoyan sect from a rank 8 sect to the 9 ranks of the great families. Furthermore, it was one of the best. The Haoyan Emperor said in a deep voice, "That's not the reason. His background is too great. No sect in the world can bind him." Shui Lingling was confused. She said, "Master, since when did you look at the background of a disciple? Isn't it fine as long as he has great luck?" Without answering Shui Lingling's question, the Haoyan Emperor's voice sounded again. He said, "Although he cannot be used by the sect, it will be beneficial for the Haoyan sect to build a good relationship with him. Pass on my order. Let the great elders in the sect look after him secretly." The pair of eyes slowly disappeared. The clouds in the sky suddenly gathered together. Then, with a swoosh, they condensed into the appearance of a middle-aged man. The body formed by the clouds was no different from a real person. It looked full of flesh and blood, full of energy. It didn't feel illusory at all. Shui Lingling exclaimed in shock, "Master, you actually used a will clone. What exactly is this Xiao Chen's background?" The Haotian emperor smiled faintly and said, "There is no need to care about Xiao Chen's background. Just treat him as an ordinary genius. I believe that those major characters in the Bushin Palace think the same. Otherwise, they would have notified me long ago." The Haotian emperor sighed and smiled. "Since I saw him, I should go and have a chat with those old friends. Unfortunately, I just saw a starry heavens brick, and I have to give up on it." After saying that, the Haotian emperor's clone casually tore at the air. A crack immediately appeared in the stable spatial structure of the Kunlun realm. Space was like a complete building with a hole torn in it. When one looked at the hole, one could see the lines formed by space and time, forming a complicated three-dimensional diagram flickering with fluorescent light. The Haotian emperor's figure flashed, and he leaped into the spatial crack that he tore open. The crack slowly closed. When it reopened, it had already traveled an extremely long distance, directly arriving in the central province from the Haotian province. Then, it landed in the Bushin Palace. Shui Lingling said softly, "Junior brother Xiao Chen is really unfathomable. Master actually gave up on experiential training in the Milky Way for him and sent down his will clone." Inside the courtyard, Xiao Chen did not know that Emperor Wu had personally witnessed the earlier battle. Furthermore, that Emperor Wu seemed to have figured out his origins. At this moment, Xiao Chen was discussing with Ao Jiao where the mysterious place she mentioned was and what kind of benefits he could obtain if he went there. "Little Ao Jiao, for your sake, I rejected first senior sister's kind invitation. Now, you have to tell me where exactly you are going, right?" Inside the immortal spirit ring, Ao Jiao was like a hard-working gardener. Her petite face had a cheerful smile as she meticulously took care of the valuable spirit trees in the immortal spirit ring. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Ao Jiao smiled disapprovingly. "You make it sound so nice. Do you think I do not know what you are thinking in your heart? Going with me will bring you more freedom. If you go with your first senior sister, you will definitely cause a lot of trouble." This was indeed one of the things that Xiao Chen was worried about. Shui Lingling was very beautiful and dazzling. There was no lack of suitors in the Bushin Palace. Xiao Chen had received such special treatment from her. If he went there, there would definitely be boring trouble waiting for him. Xiao Chen picked up the cup of tea on the table and drained it in one gulp. Then, he smiled embarrassedly and said, "No matter what, you have to tell me what kind of test I have to undergo." Ao Jiao stopped what she was doing and nodded. "Indeed, I should tell you. That is where the Thunder King comprehended the will of thunder. After thousands of years, there should not have been any changes. The will of thunder." Hearing these words, Xiao Chen's eyes immediately lit up. How strong was the will of thunder? Back then, Anjuanshi's whip had shocked all the outstanding talents of the entire Tianwu domain. He had taken away the most valuable treasure in the true dragon remains, leaving everyone with no distracting thoughts. Aside from admiration, they did not have any other thoughts. Xiao Chen felt somewhat uneasy as he said, "Little Ao Jiao, don't lie to me. Are you telling me the truth?" Ao Jiao retorted angrily, "Since when did I lie to you?" Back then, the Thunder King did indeed comprehend the will of thunder there. Although I cannot guarantee that you will succeed in comprehending the will of thunder, there is at least a 50% chance of success. After Xiao Chen calmed down, he asked the most crucial question, "Haha. Don't be angry. I got a little excited. Where is that place? How long will it take to go there and back?" After Ao Jiao thought for a while, she replied, "Very, very far. It is in a dangerous land in the Fiend domain. It will take at least 6 months to go there and back from the Haotian province." Xiao Chen frowned slightly. Such a long time and all sorts of unexpected surprises would take him at least a year to prepare. He would have to prepare for this trip for at least a year before he could deal with all sorts of things that might happen in the middle of the trip. However, a year's leave was not easy to apply for. The Haotian sect had a rule that those who had not been in the sect for 2 years could not leave the sect for half a year. However, the place that Ao Jiao mentioned was a place that Xiaoqin had to go to. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for him to surpass Bai Wuxue within a year. After all, Bai Wuxue would not wait for Xiaoqin to surpass him without making any progress. If Xiaoqin wanted to succeed, he would have to put in more effort than Bai Wuxue. No matter what, Xiaoqin had to comprehend the will of thunder. 3 days later, after Xiaoqin bought all the supplies he would need along the way, he went to Shui Lingling's residence and stated his intentions. Ha! You wanting to apply for a year's leave is not beyond my expectations. When Shui Lingling heard that, she did not feel surprised. Xiaoqin nodded and said, since first senior sister already expected it, I wonder if you will allow it? Naturally, there is no problem with agreeing to it. However, I am very curious. What kind of place is more attractive than going to Bushin Palace with me? Shui Lingling asked curiously as she looked at Xiaoqin with her bright eyes. Xiaoqin really did not know how to explain. Ao Jiao had not mentioned that place in detail. Even if he wanted to explain, he would not be able to do so. Seeing that Xiaoqin was in a difficult position, Shui Lingling did not pursue the matter. She took out a jade pendant and said, this is my personal identity pendant. Take it to the inner city's hall to ask for instructions. No one should be able to make things difficult for you. Xiaoqin received the fragrant jade pendant and performed a cup-fist salute in thanks. Many thanks for First Senior Sister's help. Xiaoqin will definitely repay First Senior Sister's kindness in the future. Chapter 731. After Xiaoqin spoke, he left in a rush. When he reached the door, Shui Lingling suddenly called out to him. Xiaoqin stopped and asked, First Senior Sister, is there something else? Shui Lingling closed her eyes, and her gentle face sank into deep thought. After a while, she opened her eyes and said, I will wait for you to return 1 year from now. At that time, not only will you have to face Bai Wushue's challenge, but you should also be qualified to participate in the Sage War of the Proud Son of Heaven ranking. Finally, take care. No matter what, you have to return alive. Xiaoqian's body trembled slightly. He could feel the concern in Shui Lingling's words, so he paused for a moment. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he did not say anything and left. Starlight flickered, and the night became like a chessboard, showing many changes. In the periphery of the savage beast forest in the Haotian province, towering trees could be seen everywhere. The dense foliage blocked out the starlight, not letting it shine. Beast roars resounded in the dark forest, sometimes near and sometimes far. They sounded like the angry roars of ghosts. In this pitch-black world, it was exceptionally flustered. However, the cultivators who came to take the risk would not be frightened by the dark night. If they were timid, they would not have the guts to barge into the famous savage beast forest of the Tianwu domain. Somewhere in the forest, a bonfire burned fiercely. The flickering light from the fire gave this dark world a not-so-dazzling light. In the boundless darkness, the light of this fire could illuminate everything within 5 kilometers. Aside from newcomers to the savage beast forest, no one would be able to see it. Aside from newcomers to the savage beast forest, no one would light a bonfire at night. That was no different from suicide. The ferocious nocturnal spirit beasts would discover it immediately and launch themselves at you. However, at this moment, a kilometer away from the bonfire, pairs of green eyes stared at the white figure beside the bonfire. However, they hesitated, not daring to take any action. A few fire spirit monkeys with their stomachs cut open hung from a tree a kilometer away. The blood on their chests had yet to congeal, and a pungent smell lingered for a long time. Fire spirit monkeys were rank 8 spirit beasts. They were tyrants in the periphery, and no one dared to offend them. Seeing the corpses of the spirit beasts hanging on the tree, any spirit beast with the slightest bit of instinct would not act rashly. Next to the bonfire, there was an unfurled scroll floating in the air. The white figure half a meter in front of the scroll was staring at the person in the painting. A young girl with a petite and cute face and an extremely hot body was adding branches to the bonfire bit by bit. The flickering firelight caused her delicate face to turn red. If one advanced to a higher realm and infused their state of mind into drawing the saber, there would be new changes. An even higher realm would be one with the world. The instant the saber was drawn, it would contain the comprehension of the world, the control of the heavenly Tao. At that point, the saber would no longer be a saber. Shao Qian was still far from such a realm. He was still at the most basic stage. How to control the angle and the environment to make different changes. As far as Shao Qian knew, there was no one in the younger generation of the Tianwu domain who had such a deep understanding of drawing the saber. If Shao Qian could improve it further, it might become his new killing move. As Shao Qian held the painting, he revealed a contemplative gaze. He muttered, "I keep feeling that this painting is not that simple. There should be an even greater secret hidden in it." Ao Jiao raised her eyelids slightly and said, "What is so special about it?" "I have seen many such treasures. They are just projections of one's comprehension of the martial technique onto a piece of paper. Many of the martial techniques that Emperor Wu passed on to the later generations are like this. The jade strip containing the dragon tone absolute art of yours has a similar effect. It is just that this drawing the saber is harder to comprehend." Shao Qian smiled faintly and placed the painting in his universe ring. He said, "Perhaps. However, I have a feeling that if I can grasp all the positions of the saber, the answer will be obvious." Ao Jiao's lips curled up slightly. Clearly, she did not believe that there was any big secret. Shao Qian swept his gaze around. When he saw the many pairs of green eyes, he said, "Get up, I have to get to work." Shao Qian casually waved his hand and extinguished the bonfire in front of him. Then, he turned into a beam of dim light and returned to the immortal spirit ring. The surrounding light vanished, and night completely engulfed Shao Qian. Shao Qian stretched his arms and legs. After he locked onto his prey, he quickly ran and leaped across the ground. So. The darkness of the night did not hinder Shao Qian's vision at all. A white figure leaped about in the forest like a nimble cheetah, leaping over obstacle after obstacle. Shao Qian crossed a kilometer in an instant. A spirit beast covered in snow-white fur and looking like a stout tiger appeared before Shao Qian. This was one of the more powerful rank 7 spirit beasts, the ice tiger. However, it did not pose any challenge to Shao Qian. Shao Qian had another purpose in making it his prey. Shao Qian's strong aura was withdrawn in his body, not leaking it out, no different from an ordinary person. When the ice tiger saw Shao Qian, its first impression was that he was somewhat strange. However, it was not as intelligent as humans. When the ice tiger no longer sensed any danger, it finally could not resist moving forward. Blood flowed out of the corner of its mouth, and its eyes were wide open. Shao Qian bent over and placed his right hand on the ice tiger's back. Then, he sent out a strand of spiritual sense to check carefully. After a while, Shao Qian revealed a dissatisfied expression. The ice tiger's internal organs did not shatter, only a crack appeared. At such a close distance, Shao Qian executed the dragon tone art and still could not kill a rank 7 spirit beast instantly. It had to be said that there were many areas that Shao Qian needed to strengthen. Chapter 732. Shao Qian looked around and measured the distance. Then, he said softly, 500 meters. This is much larger than a few days ago. Continue working hard. First, expand the range to 1 kilometer. Then, practice the angle of the sound wave. As for how to bring out the dragon might in the sound wave, Xiaoqian still needed to practice continuously. Leaping up, Xiaoqian vanished into the night, continuing his search for his next prey. The spirit beasts in the periphery of the savage beast forest were not very strong. The strongest were rank 8 spirit beasts. Xiaoqian could move about without fear here, cultivating the dragon tone art without any fear. Of course, if he was unlucky, he might run into a strong spirit beast from the inner area or other adventuring cultivators. That would be a different story. The mysterious roar resounded in the quiet night again, disturbing the spirit beasts and the nocturnal cultivators. That sound was like the roar of a true dragon, as startling as a clap of thunder. Several spirit beasts fled, and the periphery of the savage beast forest fell into chaos. Only when the sky brightened did the sound vanish. The chaotic situation slowly calmed down. However, several cultivators had already made up their minds not to come to the savage beast forest for the time being. Xiaoqian did not know that he had caused such a huge commotion. He sat cross-legged on a thick tree trunk, circulating his energy to recover his exhausted quintessence. Xiaoqian's thoughts were not idle either. He carefully comprehended the results of last night's cultivation. When a beam of sunlight pierced through the dense foliage and landed on Xiaoqian, he slowly opened his eyes. A purple light flickered in the depths of his eyes. Xiaoqian stood up and spat out a mouthful of turbid qi. He felt refreshed, the fatigue from the previous night swept away. Perhaps I have been too superficial. Since the dragon tone art specifically counters mental energy martial techniques, the intimidation of the sound wave should not be my main focus. Last night, Xiaoqian tested it many times and discovered that no matter how much quintessence he exhausted, it was difficult to increase the dragon tone art's offensive power. The moment Xiaoqian thought of this, it was like a beam of light suddenly lit up in his mind. Several of his thoughts connected. That's right, the dragon tone art should use quintessential essence as a supplement and mental energy as the main. The true dragon's voice had to enter the other party's sea of consciousness to achieve its greatest might. Since it countered mental energy martial techniques, how could it rely on quintessence? It had to bring along mental energy as well. The cultivation of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation caused Xiaoqian's mental energy to be much higher than that of an ordinary person. When he ran into such spirit beasts, Xiaoqian's dragon tone art would not be very effective. He could only stay far away to avoid trouble. Xiaoqian moved cautiously along the way. Fortunately, Xiaoqian was safe and sound. In reality, as long as he did not run into the rare rank 10 spirit beasts, Xiaoqian would be able to leave easily. After all, no matter how powerful a rank 9 spirit beast was, it could not be stronger than Bai Wuxue. Now, even Bai Wuxue could not stop Xiaoqian, much less a rank 9 spirit beast. After entering the inner area, the number of cultivators that Xiaoqian could run into decreased. However, when he occasionally ran into cultivators who were adventuring, he would be on high alert. The cultivators who dared to venture into the inner area could not be underestimated. Furthermore, the human heart was sinister. Human cultivators were far more terrifying than spirit beasts. Fortunately, Xiaoqian was not weak. Others would not be able to see through him. Furthermore, he did not have any treasures on him. So, he did not have to fight with human cultivators. On this particular day, as Xiaoqian was walking on a small path in the forest, he suddenly heard panicked footsteps in front of him. Along with the footsteps were ragged breathing. When Xiaoqian heard the sounds, he guessed that someone was being chased. Furthermore, the situation did not look good. Not wanting to cause any trouble, Xiaoqian pushed off the ground and hid behind a towering tree. Indeed, as Xiaoqian expected, a young man covered in wounds appeared before him. His robes were stained with blood, and he held a sword in his hand. This young swordsman seemed to be an early-stage inferior-grade martial monarch. Xiaoqian could not understand how someone with such strength could appear in the inner area of the savage beast forest. This was no different from suicide. Behind this young swordsman were 5 black-clothed swordsmen with the same emblem on their chests. They chased him closely, not letting him go. Pu Ci. The young swordsman was too severely injured. When he saw his pursuers getting closer, he panicked and tripped over a tree branch, falling to the ground. The 5 black-clothed swordsmen laughed maniacally. Their figures flashed, and they surrounded the young swordsman in an instant. Situ Feng, do you think that we will not dare to chase you after you ran into the inner area of the savage beast forest? The leader of the 5 black-clothed swordsmen said coldly. The young swordsman's eyes were filled with horror. He quickly climbed to his feet, and his right hand, which held his sword, trembled. Under such circumstances, the young swordsman knew that he would lose his life here. It would be difficult for him to survive. You are too much. I'll fight it out with you. Knowing that he would not be able to escape death, the fear in the young swordsman's eyes vanished. He ferociously charged over, prepared to die, and started fighting with the leader of the swordsmen. Electric light leaped around Situ Feng's sword. As the sword light danced, thunder roared faintly. The combination of the state of the sword technique was rather exquisite. Perhaps the explosive power of Situ Feng's death was too scary, but the 5 black-clothed swordsmen did not want to get injured by a dying person. The 5 black-clothed swordsmen had mocking gazes as they slowly drained Situ Feng's final bit of quintessence. Xiaochen only took one look and could not be bothered to continue watching. Both sides were only inferior-grade martial monarchs. Such a battle could not interest Xiaochen at all. Furthermore, Xiaochen was not so compassionate as to save a stranger when he did not know the situation. Xiaochen, don't leave yet. Save that swordsman first. Just as Xiaochen raised his foot, Ao Jiao's voice rang out in the immortal spirit ring. Xiaochen had no choice but to change his mind. Situ Feng was already severely injured. How could his final burst of power last? Soon, before the mocking gazes of the 5 black-clothed swordsmen, Situ Feng's aura plummeted. Situ Feng's legs trembled, and the electric light on his sword disappeared. With one look, it was clear that his quintessence was completely drained. Kill him, the leading black-clothed swordsman said to the 4 behind him with a cold smile. 4 strands of sword light containing boundless killing chi headed for Situ Feng's body coldly, trying to chop him into 4 pieces. Situ Feng closed his eyes in despair. His heart was filled with regret. If he had not been greedy, he would not have ended up in such a state. Without his life, glory, splendor, wealth, and rank would be useless. Bang! 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 Fist winds howled, and 4 miserable cries rang out. Situ Feng opened his eyes and was startled to see what happened. The 4 black-clothed swordsmen flying at him all vomited a large mouthful of blood and went flying back. Their faces contorted in incredible pain. At some point in time, a white-robed cultivator had appeared before Situ Feng, staring coldly at him. The leading black-clothed swordsman revealed a startled expression. As he looked at Xiaochen, he felt somewhat unfathomable. Xiaochen's cultivation was not much higher than his. However, when Xiaochen attacked, he injured 4 inferior-grade martial monarchs, rendering them completely defenseless. The black-clothed swordsman tried to recall all the experts in Hunluo province. However, he could not find a match for this person. He could not help but feel suspicious. Who are you? Why are you obstructing our Azure Peak City's Lu clan? The black-clothed swordsman asked sullenly. Xiaochen calmly lowered his hands and looked up at the other party. He said, "Who I am is none of your concern. You cannot kill this person now." Xiaochen felt somewhat surprised.